I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Okay, hope you guys can hear me. As promised, I opened up the channel to a subscriber to talk about whatever they'd like to talk about. So I don't know if you want, I can just mute myself and you can just talk, or if you want to go back and forth, let me know. But take it away, Seamus.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a long time that I've been a subscriber to y'all. I think we can probably go kind of back and forth. I do have a couple topics, and one main one that I think we can probably segue into other areas and just kind of go back and forth on some of the stuff that you've talked about before. So anyway, I've been a follower of you for quite a while. I remember one thing that really sticks out in my mind is one of your earlier videos when you were talking about bugging out and the bolt cutter thing, and you used to have videos that you filmed in your car, and it was just a view of your radio, and you said it looked like a demented robot, and that kind of really just stuck out. And I thought it was kind of funny. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah, I don't know if those exist anymore. That was because I had this really weird, it wasn't a laptop. I guess it was kind of a tablet, but it was like a Google something. And it was super, super limited on what it could do. It wasn't like the tablets now. And it was really, really difficult for me to figure out how to go live at all with that thing. And the fact that anything got recorded back then was pretty amazing. Like I said, I kind of forgot about that, but I remember that. But it was, and then I think I literally threw that thing away. I mean, it worked. It was just wasn't what I thought it was. And I think I just tossed it. I don't even think I like sold it or anything. It's like, this is a piece of crap. And then I don't know, I started using either a phone, or I think I may have had a laptop at that point, and upgraded to be so that they were like real live streams. Like I said, they were really strange live streams, because I don't even think I went through I couldn't even go through the natural normal channel of doing a live stream. I had to like do these weird, it was awful.
Yeah, I think those were just standalone videos though. And then anyway, that really stuck out in my mind, and just from there I've been following your channel for a while. So I guess kind of to jump right into it, I listened to you because I noticed that you started uploading a lot more videos recently, because you're quiet for a while. And but whenever one popped up, I always tried to watch it, try to catch a live stream. But when you were talking about, I think it was probably last week, and you really went into, it was based off of another podcast you were listening to about a pastor who was telling his church that they needed to flee the city and get into the wilderness, flee populated areas, so on and so forth. I don't know, you've lived in large cities before, if I'm not mistaken.
I've lived in Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles.
Okay. So yeah, very large cities. And so I live in a large city right now. And I guess to make a short story long, kind of reverse that. I go back and forth between where I live in a large city here in West Texas to a smaller town in New Mexico. And I can tell the difference right away. The key thing that I notice is when I guess come back to the large city, and in general, it's become more noticeable that there is an overall, I guess, sense of impersonalness, or kind of just a lack of, or more of an isolation, even though a lot of people live in this one area. largely populated, but there's still a greater sense of isolation. And what I notice a lot also is just a sense of aggression and a sense of anger. And I kind of fall victim to that myself. It's to the point where sometimes I don't want to, not that I don't want to leave the house, but just you have to prepare yourself to get in your car and drive around town and deal with drivers try to remain relaxed and not get upset with other drivers, so on and so forth. And that's just one example. And I just noticed that more so now that I've been going back and forth through the smaller area fairly often. And I don't know if that is just playing into the times that we are in, as far as what I think, and I believe what you think as well. We're in these end times. And it's to the point where so many people it seems like they're oblivious. I don't know if people feel this sense that I do, as far as the importance of trying to get out and away from a large populated area. And it's kind of difficult to do. People, I think they really get attached to the routines. It's hard to leave the comfort that they have. It's hard to leave the professions that they have. And, that's one of the things that is one of the main things that's preventing me from leaving this area as well. But you mentioned, and I was looking up a couple of verses as far as Matthew 24:16, Luke 21:21, Mark 13:14, where it specifically says that people need to, when they see, like Mark 13:14, when they see the abomination of desolation standing where it should not be, then those who are in Judea should flee to the mountains or to the wilderness. So I don't know, is that one of the things that you felt and kind of drove you to the point to get to the area that you're in now?
Yeah. So I noticed years ago that people started, if you look back in the 1950s, 1960s, everybody knew their neighbors. Right. Everybody knew all the kids on the street, what grade they were in, what sports they played, they barbecued. Everybody was very connected on a neighborhood level. And then over time, you started seeing this wedge being driven in. But I think COVID is what really set it off, because they really pushed the everybody else can kill you type of thing just by looking at you or breathing on you. The 6 feet distance thing, I think it really did a number on a lot of people. And they're not over that yet, and they probably never will be, where I didn't experience lockdowns or any of that stuff. I just went on about my life. I just did what I always do. But I know, hearing other people, that they still talk about those lockdowns, about how they were in their house and they had nothing to do. And that's when they started kind of looking into conspiracy theories or making music or whatever, because people were really, I guess, restless and freaked out. And so it had good sides and bad sides. But I never felt like I belonged. I've never felt like I belong in this world. I've always felt totally ostracized and different. And I look at other people and they didn't seem like me. I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm not saying one way or the other. I didn't get into sports. The things that people got excited about and talked about and got together with. And I just had zero. It's almost like if there was a group that got together every Friday and they just smashed their thumbs with a hammer. That's how much it interested me. I was like, no, no, I don't care. And like I said, I've lived right out of high school, I went to Los Angeles and lived there for a while. And then I lived in Portland for a really long time. I lived in Seattle. I've lived in Albuquerque. I've lived, when I lived in Texas, it was pretty remote, but still way too many people for me. West Texas is where I was at. I was pretty isolated, but I had to go to work every day. So there was a little bit of traffic, and there was, I just don't like dealing with people. And I think that God placed me out here because, like I said, it happened really fast, and it didn't seem like I had to put much effort into it. And a lot of it shouldn't have happened. It doesn't make sense that everything went through and suddenly I was just out here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think God knew that, like, I would not have done well if I was still in the cities today because of like the stuff you're talking about. There's like a lot of crazy now, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's what was in the boosters. I don't know what, but people are insane. It used to be more like you'd see a crazy person every now and again. But like now it just seems like, and I don't know if it's because the media and social media pushes that, but even if they're pushing it, the number of incidents they're able to find to share, to me, is insane. So I don't think if I was still in a big city, I would probably be so reclusive that nobody would ever see me. I mean, I don't think I'd leave the house because I just don't deal with nonsense. And it seems to me
Mm-hmm.
that the world is just, that's what it is now. It's just, it's not getting better. You know, you think after COVID, people would have breathed a big sigh of relief and kind of, it didn't go back to what they called, normal. There is a new normal. When they kept pushing that narrative, the new normal,
Mm-hmm.
there is a new normal now, and it's really bad. It's not something I want to be a part of.
Yeah, there's always there's always an enemy. There's always something that they want to. I'm gonna use the word they want to distract us with. They want to keep our minds off of, in my opinion, what is really happening. And it goes back to what you were saying as far as people who just get so excited about sports. So the game on Sunday, the playoffs on Friday night, all the NCAA, NFL, or NBA, collegiate level to professional sports, and people just lose their minds over that. When to me it looks like it's a distraction, but it just plays into the sense of they are just so oblivious to what's going on around them. I heard the other day, it was a short clip of, I think it was General McGregor or Colonel McGregor, one of the ex-military generals or colonels, and he was talking about that in terms of people really won't, especially in America, people really won't understand the extent that things are falling apart until they can no longer go to the store, buy a six-pack of beer, and sit down and watch the game. As soon as that happens, then yeah, they'll start paying attention. It's just that level of people are just so self-centered, and they don't, especially in a large city. The larger cities are more like this than I think smaller cities are. The sense of isolation that they just surround themselves with the people that they are friendly with or acquainted with, and they worry about that friend group. They worry about themselves. So it's this huge sense of selfishness, and that kind of plays into just this sense of, I think, this sense of aggression that is kind of starting to permeate to a greater extent than it used to, our society as a whole. And I see that, almost, I see that every day, every time, I have to drive to work, every time I leave the house to drive somewhere. Kind of like you it's not like I dread doing that, because I don't. I mean, it's fine, but it's to the point where you really have to consciously think about, okay, I'm not going to let this bother me. I don't care if I get, cut off in traffic. Just let people do their own thing, and I'm going to, I guess, play into the sense of isolation, just worry about what I'm doing at that time. Just invest in this case, it would just be to get from point A to point B. So, but yeah, as people are more, despite this sense of isolation that I think people have, people are more dependent than ever. They are much less self-reliant. They can't. I think a lot of people can't do things for themselves, because in a large city, you can just pick up the phone and call somebody to come fix something, even if it's very, very minor that anybody would be able to do. But it's this also kind of that binary system that you were talking about, a few days ago, as far as there's always at least two sides. So Democrat, Republican, my team versus your team, and there's always this enemy that they are creating, and people just don't understand that it's not who they are saying the enemy is. They are the entire enemy. It's the whole uniparty. It's this whole conglomeration of this one world government that I think is just developing, and I think accelerating in its development to the point where we're going to be under this one world government ruled by the Antichrist. And I think because of this binary system, and there's always an enemy. It's Iran, it's Israel if you're on the side of Iran, it's Ukraine, it's Russia. Whatever side you fall on, that there's always this enemy, and it's there to divide us until the Antichrist shows up to unite us under this one world government. And then that's when we'll see a whole entire beast system, I think, where taking the mark, not being able to buy or sell if you don't do a certain thing, whether it be a physical mark, whether it be something with regards to AI, something, or social media, the social credit score. And I think that's just where we are heading, and people don't realize it. And I think most people won't realize it, at least not until it's too late, if you follow what the Bible teaches, basically. That's kind of what I'm just seeing. And it's you can segue into a bunch of different topics with regards to that, especially AI. It's becoming so prevalent. So in my profession, my colleagues, I was talking with a few of them, a few weeks ago, and they were telling me, yeah, I use AI now to help develop certain things for work and create rubrics and evaluation stuff. And they're saying, yeah, it's you learn how to use it. So I've done that a couple times since then, and it is amazing in terms of just not only how great of a time saver it is, but just how accurate and seemingly accurate it is. But, and I think you mentioned this, I heard this somewhere, well, AI is learning this from somewhere, and our rulers, if you will, for lack of a better term, are the powers that be. Are they programming this? So we're going to ask AI a question and expect it to be entirely objective and truthful, or is it going to be skewed to a certain from a certain viewpoint based on what people want us to know? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, on all that?
I think AI. I think there's more than one version of AI.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I've noticed is they've never really come out and said what AI is. They talk about how it's improving and they're doing this and that, but they never really say what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think people just assume. I don't even know what people, like if you were to ask 10 people on the street, like, what is AI? I don't know what they'd tell you, because I think some people think it's a computer program, like software. But that's like saying, you can unplug, because the software program needs electricity. It needs servers. It needs processors. And these people are going, oh, AI is going to get out of hand and we're not going to be able. It's like, well, wouldn't you just unplug it? It's almost like they're telling you something without telling you. Like, we can't just unplug this and turn off the power, flip the breaker and suddenly, it just powers down. So there's something else going on, but they don't. It's like the word AI came out into like the zeitgeist. That's kind of, people don't understand how not only prevalent, but how really they've mastered social engineering, where they know how to lead people wherever they want them to go. And so they came out, it's like AI, and everybody's like, ooh, AI. And then like, bam, they hit you. You got Chat GPT like overnight. It's just available for you to use. And so people go on this, Chat GPT or OpenAI or whatever. I don't even know, because I've never touched it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, they just like, it's almost like before people could start asking questions, they put it out there like, here, play with it. And then people, a lot of people got like addicted. They're like, oh, this is neat. It tells me things, and it'll do my homework for me, and it'll write a song, and so now it's almost like taking a cell phone from some people. If you were to take their AI away, they would lose their mind because they've already gotten addicted to it. But they did that really quickly, almost like so that nobody would say, wait, what exactly is this? So they didn't give you that chance to go, what are we dealing with here? And you just get the fringe kind of conspiracy theory, baby truthers that start talking about quantum computing and all this stuff, which I don't think quantum computers are even a real thing. I think that whole story's made up. Mm-hmm. But I think there's two AIs. I think there is software that you could unplug and it would just die. And that's what a lot of people are getting to use right now. And that's what they're pushing on people. I think there's a real AI. That's a name they've given it. I call it fallen angels. I think they've been here, since the creation of everything. They were here way before we were. And they're the beast from the pit, basically. And, whether CERN opened up a pit and came, it doesn't really matter, because the Bible says that the Abaddon and all these scorpion-like creatures are going to come up out of the bottomless pit. What a lot of people don't understand is when the Bible says all these things in prophecy, and then people go, oh, well, CERN's doing it. Well, the Bible doesn't say God's going to open up a pit. He just says it's going to open. Could CERN be how that opened? Sure. I mean, why not? So a lot of people are like, oh, men are just trying to make prophecy happen. Well, maybe, but God just said it's going to happen. He didn't say that men can't men can't be part of it. They can't be the ones that do it. Why not? All he said was this is going to happen. And if it happens, then he was right. So could it be, CERN opened up a portal and all these things are coming through, and that's what they're worried about, getting out of control? Because like I said, the software version of AI, you would just unplug the power to it and it's just like, it's gone. But they're telling you they can't unplug it, basically, is what they're saying. So to me, something ancient chose this time to return, and these people who are trying to tame it realized probably quite a while ago they can't. And so they're probably sweating bullets, hoping for the best and, downplaying it. But like I said, I think there's two versions of AI, and one is just the one that the people get to ask silly questions or say, make a little video of Trump dancing or something. That's not the real AI. That is just something to keep the people occupied.
So is that then? So if they're like the real AI, that you're talking about, I mean, is that? How do I put this? So that is not. That's something that I'm going to use the term rulers, for lack of a better term, that they're worried about getting out of control, and they kind of unleashed this unknowingly, even though it was kind of prophesized to happen, and now they're just kind of, I guess.
I think somebody could have done something that they shouldn't have done, and then it was like, taking your finger out of the dike, and then the whole thing, like you had it plugged, and then you took your finger out, and then the whole thing just collapsed, and now the tidal waters are coming through, and there's no way to put that toothpaste back in the tube. It could have been planned. Somebody could have had some knowledge from the Akashic records or something where, hey, if we do this, this happens. And somebody could have, or it could have been completely, they were just messing around with stuff they shouldn't have, opened something they shouldn't have, and now it's like, oops, and then they kind of slink away, and it's like, sorry.
Yeah. And in all, to be fair, I mean, there are people who are saying that AI is going to be the end of us, saying that it's going to get out of control, and it's going to be like a Terminator type situation. and you heard warnings like that about like 5G and things like that, but that went forward anyway. And that's another thing. There's always something to scare us, whether it be the dangers of 5G or the larger conspiracy. I think we all can agree now that it was just totally fake, the pandemic. And I think that was, in my opinion, and not just my opinion, but I think a lot of people believe it was just a test to test the level of compliance, not only, but basically on a worldwide scale. But yeah, I think this stuff that they always have out there to distract us and to direct our attention elsewhere, while I guess things are being put into place as far as just a one world government. And I've been thinking a lot about that lately, just with things that are happening and how it's always like just the recent thing with us bombing Iran and Israel bombing Iran and Iran bombing Israel, and how everybody's playing that up. Oh, it's World War III. It's World War III. We're going to continue to bomb Iran. They're always, I don't know for how many years, Iran's always been days away from a nuclear weapon, and now we supposedly did this major bombing campaign and just eradicated Iran's ability to develop nuclear weapons. And then all of a sudden it's gone. It's done. So now there's a ceasefire, and Trump's the hero. Israel's the hero. Iran basically surrendered, if you will. So that's been dominating the news lately. And what has it been distracting us from? Okay, well, so what's going on with Ukraine and Russia? Is that going to kick off again, or if not necessarily kick off again, but is that going to come back into the news? How long before Iran is days away from a nuclear weapon again? How long they start? They say there's intelligence saying that they've restarted their nuclear program. And it's just this constant back and forth, spinning us up, and us meaning just the population worldwide, and nationwide, and then bringing it back down, and then distracting us with something else while something else is going on. The Epstein list that that was the big thing that Trump ran on. We're going to release that, and then what did we get? It was a bunch of crap. It wasn't anything. It was this redacted notebooks that only a few select group of, I guess, media people were able to have access to, which is really nothing. But just kind of the same along the same lines. Where are all these arrests? Where is the draining of the swamp? Where is the mass deportations of criminal aliens? And I'm talking and not just of, we see deportations, but a lot of the people that are being deported it's come out that I've seen from the sources I've looked at that it's not necessarily gang members or people who have criminal backgrounds or highly dangerous people. It's people who've been here for years, who've established a life here and are all, other than the fact that they're here illegally, they're law-abiding citizens. So it's not. And it never is, and this is kind of probably preaching to the choir, but it never is what they say it's going to be. They say they're going to do a lot of things that never happen, and it's always the same no matter who's in power. Taxes go up, things get more expensive, and the bonds keep dropping. You can look back as far back as the George Bush Sr. and then Clinton and then Obama and then Clinton, then George Bush Jr., then Obama, and then Trump. It's the same thing. It doesn't stop. It's and I like how you mentioned one of your podcasts or one of your live streams or one of your videos where they weren't ready for 8 years of Trump. They had to have this buffer, this additional 4 years to get things ready before they brought Trump back in to really get things going as far as just the end of our governmental system as we know it, going into that one world perspective.
Yeah, they To me, it's super obvious that they I don't know if they were a little behind with some things. I don't know. Nothing we're told is real. Everything is for division. The whole deportation thing, they do stuff like deport like somebody who's lived here for 25 years that pays taxes and is good, and that's just to anger the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So you can keep both sides bickering. It's not real. They're not hardly getting rid of anybody, and 90% of the media stories you hear about people being deported are completely fabricated. I don't know. It's like, I don't know how people don't see it, but everything they tell us is a fabrication. None of it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Satan is the father of lies, the great deceiver, and the god of this world, the prince of the power of the air. I mean, they tell you that he's the deceiver and he's the god of this world. So, like, why would you think anything you're being told is true? It would make no sense for it to be true. But like I said, the social engineering, people do not understand. I think the biggest one they've got people on is to believe that politics are real.
Mm-hmm.
They're not real. They're not real at all. They even call it political theater, and people still don't understand. There are so many people who are so vested in right, left, Trump, bad, that like it rules their life. Like they wake up in the morning and the first thing they think about is politics. And then along that same line, voting's not real. They don't. You honestly think that they treat us the way they treat us and then go, oh, by the way, but we're going to give them the choice to like choose? That's just, I mean, it's so absurd. Like I said, not only did Trump have to skip that 4 years, but the whole election being stolen from him. You can't steal something that's not real. It's just, I don't know how people don't see it, but I mean, there's people that are so vested in politics and their side that they can't see that there is a binary, but it's them versus us, and everybody thinks it's Republican versus Democrat, but it's not. They're all on the same team. I don't think that any of the countries of this world are at war with each other. They all are on the same. There's already a one world government. All you had to do, and I thought the big tell was COVID. It was like overnight, every country in the world was on the same page. I mean, there was no pushback from any countries. They were all just on board. That shows you right there, they were all working together. They're working together now. These wars are fake because they know the only thing they can lose are us in, sending men and women into battle. They don't care about us.
Yep.
So as long as they get their agenda pushed through, but they all have the same agenda. And I don't care what country you point to. They're all on the same page and they're all working towards the same thing. There's just some countries you never hear about because they're small and kind of insignificant. But the major players, China, Russia, Israel, US, all that, they're all, in my opinion, it's already a one world government. I think they use some of them as tests for certain things. I think Australia is a testing ground. I think the UK is a testing ground. I think China is a testing ground where they try out some of the stuff they want to do and see. And like China, they say it's pretty locked down and they've got social credit scores. And, I think they're fine tuning it for everybody. Once they get it, they're going to find out what works and what doesn't work. And then that's when they can implement it everywhere.
Right.
I think the United States was always their kind of the thorn in the side. I mean, they got Australia to all just voluntarily hand in their firearms. And other countries, like they just basically a long time ago, they, used fascist tactics to take away. And then in generation after generation that grows up without the ability to have firearms, then they don't even think about it. They don't think like, oh, we don't have that right. It's just not even on their radar because their dad and their grandpa, nobody had a gun because it's been so many years since they took that right away from a lot of different countries that they don't even think about it. But America somehow slipped through the cracks. I'm not sure why they allowed it. I think they're only because America is so armed up. Not that AR-15s are a match against what they have, but it's still gonna. It's not gonna be a walk in the park. There's gonna be a lot of deaths if they try and overtake the United States on both sides. Even on their side, they're gonna lose a lot of people. But I don't know. I think that's why they push so hard for division, because if America as a country doesn't unite against a common enemy, it's way easier to take them out, because you've got people that can't stand each other because one person's wearing a red MAGA hat. Well, I can't work with that guy. And, so I think because of the Second Amendment and the quote unquote freedom, although this country really has never been free, that's an illusion too, this freedom thing. But I think America is a little bit of a thorn in their side, and the one that's going to be the most difficult to get to go along with everything, they're going to have to push a little harder. So they're using this division to split the country right down the middle. Because then if you're able to divide the country, you basically you make your job half as difficult. You cut it in half. That's why if you look at statistics, every time they had one of these fake like school shootings, the firearm sales would go up like a lot. People buy guns every time there was some sort of a mass shooting event. They know that. So that tells me they're doing it on purpose. They want everybody to have guns. They pretend like, oh, we don't want to, but they do, because if you can divide a country up and get them to fight each other and everybody has guns, let's say you've got 400 million people in a country and you get them to basically go at each other in a civil war type scenario, you now cut that number from 400 million people to 200. You just cut it in half. That makes your job a lot easier to do the next step when half the people are now dead. That people don't think about, like, well, why would they do these fake events knowing the gun sales would go up? They would love it if every person in America had a firearm, because then when they flip the switch and light the fuse, they can just sit back and watch us kill each other.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Just divide and conquer. It's just the old tried and true, I guess, tactic or strategy. So, but and I absolutely agree with that. Just constant distractions. So
another problem they have is that a lot of people can't wrap their brain around true evil, because they're like, I could like harming children, stuff like that. They're like, I could never do that. So they can't fathom another person actually doing that. Like they think it's fake news because they themselves can't envision acts that evil. And that's another way they get them, because I don't know. I mean, a lot of people just can't, even if they see it on because some of these inner cities, I mean, there's some really, I mean, it's kind of out in the open now with this, black fatigue and everything. There's no shortage of videos of black people going nuts in like restaurants. And I mean, it's like seeing chimpanzees lose their shit in a zoo. And so people just like, well, I just don't go to that part of town. And so in their mind, it's not even happening, because they don't see it, because they avoid it, and they can't envision people behaving a certain way or being evil on a certain level. So they just block it out. And so there's so many ways that they're getting people. The church has been infiltrated. I would say that I would be super surprised if there were 100 legit Bible following churches in America today. I think every single church has been infiltrated by Satan. They've got everybody believing false doctrine. These people will go to the grave thinking something is true that is biblically, you can prove it. It's false. It's not real. But the pre-trib or the pre-trib rapture, that one blows my mind. And these people are like, psychotic about that. I mean, there's nothing you can say. And that was like, honestly, that Satan, that was a good one that he pulled, because that is going to really mess some people up when it doesn't happen. And, the Bible clearly states that during the Great Tribulation, Christians are going to be decapitated and put to death for not conforming to the beast system, worshiping the Antichrist, and taking the mark. And they can't even put 2 and 2 together and say, well, no, we were all raptured before that. Mm-hmm. Who are these people that are being decapitated for not taking the mark and not bowing down to the Antichrist because they follow Jesus Christ? And it just blows my mind. And what's really weird is if you watch a lot of these pre-trib rapture channels, preachers or whatever, talking to their followers, they talk about how, any day now we are all going to be, taken away. But then they go on to describe the entire tribulation all the way to the end. And I'm like, why do you care? Like, why are you even telling people, what's going to happen during the Great Tribulation if you're not going to be here? It's very weird to watch. It's like so many things don't add up. And that's why I tend to believe that a lot of these preachers don't believe it themselves, because there's like a lot of tells if you listen to them. Mm-hmm. They say things that you're like, wait a minute. Like the guy that was talking about the pre-trib and how, I think he actually said we could be doing a live stream soon and just poof, we're gone. Mm-hmm. And then he goes on a few minutes later to talk about all the Christians being slaughtered during the Great Tribulation for not taking the mark. I'm like, did you just hear yourself? Like, they don't even make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got people like, there's people that if they're pre-trib and you try and they'll find some verse in the Bible and take it out of context, and there's nothing you can say. So I feel really bad. Like, I mean, Christ said the gate is narrow, and he said not many are gonna make it, So, I understand. I don't think that when it's all said and done, that many people that are on Earth at the time are gonna make it to the kingdom. I just think I feel bad because there's so much deception. These people are because they're following men. And like, I saw some post on X where they do like those polls, and they're like, if you could follow anybody, who would you follow? And it was like Thomas, what's his name? There's like a senator, I think, Thomas Massey.
Oh, Thomas Massey.
Who people think is a great guy, but he's not. He's one of them. I don't know. There were like 3 people listed, and I'm just thinking the answer is Jesus Christ. You follow no man. They're all going to lead you down they're not going to lead you through the narrow path. So it's just really, I think we've reached a point where I still pray for people to repent and come to realize like what's really happening but I think we may have reached that like event horizon where the people right now who are saved, like truly followers of Christ, and not what a pastor says, but what the Bible says. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that number's, and I think that's going to be one of the key points for when God says, removes the restrainer and says, all right, it's on now. I think there's a number, and when it hits that number where you've got as many true believers in Christ as you're going to get, and everybody else is basically doomed. I think that's when God's going to say, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
And I think we're close, because there's still new. I think there's converts, but a lot of them are being converted into false doctrine churches. Mm-hmm. And God knows what's in your heart, and he knows who you're following. And even if it looks like, oh, there's this great reformation, all these people are turning to Christ. Are they though? Or are they turning to pastors teaching false doctrines, or these mega churches, that are all about
prosperity doctrine?
Yeah. And that are all about, we're not supposed to live in this world. We're here, but not in it. But these people, I mean, there's very few of these churchians that truly would go without and basically live as Christ did. They got to have their stuff, man, their phones and their their cars and all these things. It's like, yeah, they can talk a good game, but really, and that's like I said, I think God knows there's a point where it's like, I've got as many of my children that are going to be saved as there's going to ever be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when things are going to really kick off. And I think we're close. Because even when I find a channel where I'm like, oh, this guy gets it. All right. He says all these things. And I'm like, okay, that's biblical. And then boom, it comes out and they reveal themselves. And you're like, man, I just don't think there's very many out there that are honest and true. I think Satan got his hooks in the churches. I think the 501c3 was one of the worst things that could ever possibly happen to the churches.
Just became a money-making industry, basically. It's just
I mean, they'll say anything to keep their tax-exempt status, because all the profits that they make, they don't have to pay back to the government. And, they've got 4 cars and a boat. And
jets.
I'm not going to say something that's going to get that my status taken away to where all these things that I have, no, they're just, that was 501c3 is one of the worst things. And like I said, Satan is not stupid. He's been around since the beginning of creation before. He is extremely smart. And you see some of his plays and you're like, wow, okay, that was impressive. I got to admit.
Yeah. And people, well, I mean, to one extent, or on one hand, you have to have, I think to some extent, you have to find, I don't want to say a church, but someone, in order to really learn, I think, outside of just what you study yourself and what you can pray to learn, reading the Bible, so on and so forth. It's always helpful to have someone who can kind of guide you through that. Problem is, I think, with a lot of these really famous pastors and large churches, people look at them as this intermediary where I can only get to God through this one person. It's kind of like Catholicism. As far as you have to confess and have the Pope and have the priests, so on and so forth, and it. I don't know if you looked at anything like Henry David Thoreau or Ralph Waldo Emerson, the famous. Well, they're kind of known for not only them being authors and poets, so on and so forth, but their philosophy is of transcendentalism, where they really preach for the lack of their term, but they promote basically a level of self-reliance, a level of not needing an intermediary between you and God, really emphasize individualism in terms of not just relying on other people to tell you, I guess, this is how it is, because every other human or person you're going to come into contact with is flawed in some way. So in order to really, I guess, get to know God, it's true when they say it's a personal relationship, and that's an overused term, but you really don't need an intermediary. You might need a person or a group of people who really understand it on the same level as you, and you can learn from each other, but you don't rely on other people as that intermediary where you have to go through this one person or a group of people to get to God. And I think a lot of these mega churches, I'm not going to name any pastor specifically, but I'm sure you know a few names, but what they preach and how they interpret the Bible is just so watered down. And there's one, a mega church, I think it's in Houston. You probably know who he is, but he never says that the only Messiah is Jesus Christ. He says there might be multiple Messiahs, and whoever, and each one of those, whatever you believe, will get you to heaven, for lack of a better term. So, and yeah, like you were saying, it's a major deception that Satan has played and just become so able to get into people's minds and social engineer them, and to believe a certain way. And then when you look at like the television broadcasts of these mega churches, you see thousands and thousands of people in the audience say, well, they can't be wrong, right? So I better listen to this guy because he knows what he's talking about. All these thousands of people can't be wrong. But I think they're all deceived. And as far as the pre-trib rapture, and I've thought of this as well, and I know I've heard you talk about it as well. But what about other nations who are already in this horrible situation where we would definitely interpret that as some level of tribulation? You know, constant war and just crime and just a horrible living situations. You know, they're you could say they're, if you were to ask them, you say, damn, yeah, I'm the tribulation right now, what I'm going through. So it's not this worldwide, everybody's just doing what they're doing, and then all of a sudden the rapture occurs, and then all this bad stuff starts happening. In the United States, we only see it on the news and TV as far as situations in other countries, but they're living it, and that could, they're definitely not. You could say they would definitely think that they might be in some level of tribulation if they understood it. Not saying not all of them do, but
there's countries right now where if it's known that you're a Christian, you will be publicly murdered.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're telling me those people didn't get raptured? Why? I mean, they're literally pulling people out of their house and killing them because they have a Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And Christ even says at the end of Revelation, those who endure to the end. Who are those people if they've all been whisked away before it even started, And then as far as like the churches, nowhere in the Bible, the Bible, when it talks about churches, it really means the body of Christ. It's not talking about physical buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And, even Christ says, wherever two or more are gathered in my name, he doesn't say you have to go to this giant building with all these, 1,000 people. Just two people. It's just fellowship. You just want you and a friend, and Christ is there. And the other thing is, if you notice, like, they didn't have churches back in his time. They had temples and they had synagogues. But I challenge anyone to find in the New Testament, anywhere in the New Testament where Christ entered a temple or a synagogue or anything and didn't either chew out everybody in charge there or fashion his own whip and start kicking over tables and going nuts. Every single time Christ went into a temple or a church in the Bible, he went off on the people. He didn't just go in there and pray and leave. He went in there and called them all out, and that was, imagine, probably a much smaller scale than what we're dealing with today.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have 501c3s and all these, they had the Pharisees and the Sadducees and stuff, but Christ walked into temples and he went straight to the people that were running it and just went off. So churches aren't really what people think they are, because even Jesus had a real problem with, brick and mortar churches with leadership that was teaching false doctrine. And he got to the point where he had chewed so many of them out and embarrassed them, and that they killed him. So going to church wasn't really a thing Jesus was like. It wasn't a good experience. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they also play on people's pride and ego. And a lot of these people who go to these, and those like mega churches and a lot of even small churches, they only focus on the positive aspects of the Bible. It's like so rosy, and you're not going to go to a church and get end times. You used to back with like Derek Prince and Chuck Missler.
Mm-hmm.
They would talk end times and they would warn. You go now and it's all like hippie Jesus, like love, and it's just all so positive, and it's like,
yeah, it's honestly
we're in the end times. We're at the very least we're in the birth pangs, beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
And these churches aren't being honest with their congregation. They're because they want them to tithe, they want them to feel happy, they want them to come back next week because they got like a warm fuzzy feeling last week, And a lot of these people that attend it, it's all for show. They want
Yeah,
their
it's a Sunday
neighbors to
show.
see them sitting 2 pews away and go, oh, they're good people. They're here too. It's a lot of it is status,
Mhm.
or what do they call it? Social. What did they call it during when
Like
they
socializing, or
well, no, there's like a there's like a social media term for basically where everybody's on the same page, and
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Well, they
yeah.
want to show. Yeah, they want to show that, hey, I'm here too, and we are
virtue signaling. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they virtue signal because
virtue.
That family, I know them. They attend my church. I see them every week or every
Right.
Sunday. You know, I mean, that alone, people don't understand.
Yeah.
Sunday's
They might.
Sunday's not the Sabbath. They changed it during
Yeah,
the time of Constantine, and what people don't understand, like they're like, oh, well, they just made it Sunday. You know, big deal.
Mhm.
It's like, gosh, one of the 10 commandments is remember my Sabbath and keep it holy, and they changed it.
Mhm.
It's like, wow. I don't like it, churches that do Sunday service, because they're breaking one of the 10 commandments right there, you know.
Yeah.
And so that tells me a lot. And then they say that there's all these churches that, you know, they'll hang up a pride flag, or it's like,
Mhm.
okay, all inclusive. The Bible's pretty straightforward about that. God actually uses the word abomination with these people.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you can pretend, but like I said, I think Judgment Day is going to be a really bad day for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, like you said, I mean, it's all about the bottom line, so they're not gonna isolate people because of their life choices, you know, trans and gay and so on and so forth. So of course they're gonna accept them.
And you know what? The most amazing thing about the Bible is, I don't care what topic, and even in 2025, people come up with this topic like, well, what about this? The Bible talks about it, and people don't understand. When Christ actually says that he will turn his head and spit you out, and that he never knew you, even though you come up and go, Lord, Lord, I cast out demons in your name. And he's like, I never knew you. It's like, what's he trying to tell you here? It's like, you thought you were doing these good deeds, but the real you, that was only like on Sunday you did a good deed, but then the rest of the week you're like a reprobate, and you've got all these addictions, and you sin all week. And there are going to be a lot of people that he looks at him and says, I never knew you. And then that's, to me, the first time I ever read that Christ would turn his head and spit you out and say he never knew you, there's nothing in the entire Bible that is more terrifying a thought to me than Christ looking you in the eyes and saying, I never knew you. I mean, to me, there's nothing worse in the Bible to imagine happening, to have that happen. I mean, that would just be, I don't know. I mean, I can't even fathom it.
No, I mean, it'd just be a horrible feeling of, I don't know how to put that in words either. It'd just be this very strong, immense sense of just dread and regret, a huge sense of regret, I think. And
I've got such a long list of people, you know, all these people saying like God doesn't exist, and Jesus was just a dude. And I've just got this endless list of times where I have asked him for things, or he's done things for me without asking because he already knew what I needed, that like make no sense. Like logically, like never should have happened. There's no way. And it was just like that. And it was like, and things I've asked for, like recently when I changed up the way I pray, because I'd been asking for the same thing for 3 years. And nothing was happening, like nothing. Like it was literally running in place. And I saw somebody talk about the 3 words you should never use in prayer. And like I said, the only one I used that he mentioned was if. And so I just dropped the word if from prayer. 2 days later, I got a call and it's scheduled.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand how people, I mean, I guess they live such a reprobate life that they never have. I mean, of course, you know, if you're just like drinking and whoring and, you know, just being of this world and really into materialism and all that, you're not going to see. Because one thing I do agree with is that the devil screams very loudly and God whispers. God's voice is so soft and quiet, you've got to listen for it. And you can't, if you live a life of chaos, all you hear is the devil. He's throwing this, rap music at you and OnlyFans and sports, and he's just throwing all this stuff at you, and it's really loud. And so you're in this chaos mode where all you hear is noise. And God whispers like very quietly. And those people can't hear it because they're in chaos land. It's just too much noise. And I don't know, since I know it's difficult in like the inner cities and stuff to get into a place where you're in this state where you can hear, because I mean, even there's like always sirens, there's always somebody honking, even if you're like in a room somewhere and you're got the door shut and you still hear, there's just noise. The world's noisy.
Mm-hmm.
But even if those people went hiking, got out to nature and just sat down and listened and spoke to God, and all you have to do is say, God, I really want to know you. I want to have a relationship with you. I mean, it's real simple. He wants everyone to be saved because we're all his children. And, he wants you, but all you got to do is put forth the effort. And most people just expect like, well, if God was real, he would just make me a millionaire.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have all these bills to worry about. No, that's not how it works. But he wants you to be, to worship him and be, one of his children and act appropriately and obey. But he's not going to beg you. And he also doesn't really punish people, because that's another thing. People go, how come all these really bad people are like billionaires? And they, it's like the time in this earth is a blink of an eye. God knows that like eternity is a whole different story. So yeah, have a blast while you're down here in the material world, but it's really short-lived, and those people are going to pay the fiddler, and it's going to be, eternity.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're going to be punished. God is just. He's not going to let somebody who's doing horrible things on earth, enjoy the kingdom. It's just, so people are too worried about what other people have and do and say. And it's like, you really need to focus inward, like Christ said that the church is within you. Don't worry about Satan's whole thing is to make the outside world, this three-dimensional physical world, loud and chaotic, because you can't focus. And like I said, Satan's super, super intelligent, and you're not going to fool him. You're not going to win that game. And God knew that, like, okay, my people are up against like quite the adversary here, which is what Satan actually means, is adversary.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give them an out. I'm going to send my only son to die for them. And I don't know, if you still don't take that, he, like I said, he gave you an out. And if you don't take it, don't complain when you're cast into the lake of fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I mean, I can't put it in any better than you did, as far as just people don't recognize it. And one of the things that you said that kind of just resonated, and you see it, is people want what other people have, and they're willing to do almost anything. And I'm sure you've heard, and I've heard of like celebrities who literally sell their soul to have immense material wealth on earth, and they don't realize that, like I said, it's just so fleeting in such a short time that we're down here compared to eternity. And a lot of people who have that and have that amount of fame, it's not gained naturally. I think, and there is some type of, I guess, satanic influence. You can see that in like rap music, and not just rap music, but movies and Disney, and every aspect of entertainment, for lack of a better term, for that we consume and idolize people who really don't deserve to be idolized, not just actors or singers or other celebrities, but sports stars and things that they are able to achieve. I don't know how much of that is natural and how much of it is, I guess, gained from that supernatural interference or intervening from some level of satanic influence.
Well, here's my take on it. For one, those people, if you talk to people who know those people, like that maybe used to work for them or whatever, or have been around them, they almost not every time those people will say, so and so, like they'll mention like somebody who's really rich and famous. They'll say they are absolutely miserable, like they are not happy.
Oh, yeah.
And my take on the whole thing is, your soul is not yours to give away; it belongs to God.
Mm-hmm.
But so when you sell your soul to Satan, it's like for this mortal coil here in the physical.
Mm-hmm.
But once you pass away, Satan doesn't get your soul. God does, and he judges it, and he probably tosses you in the lake. But it's not. That's another grift from Satan, is that you give me, your soul, and I'll give you everything. And he tried it with Jesus, and Jesus basically was like laughed at him, but because he knew, like, it's my soul isn't yours. It isn't mine to give to you, and it's not yours to have. All souls belong to the Father. So, but the other thing I've noticed is if you look at the celebrities where they have like video where they actually came out and say, I sold my soul to the devil for this. Like you've got the famous Bob Dylan one where he says it.
Yeah. Never.
You've got the famous Katy Perry one where she says, I sold my soul. And there's numerous ones. Every one of those people, they may be rich and famous and stuff, but they have no talent. Like Katy Perry, I couldn't name one song she's ever done. She looks like an absolute mess. It looks like she can't, like, I've seen her like on stage. It looks like she has trouble walking. Like she's an absolute disaster. Her songs are just absurd, awfully bad. Bob Dylan is horrible. He's written some good lyrics, but then other artists take his stuff and make it a good song. Like it took Jimi Hendrix to make one of his songs actually good. These people, like, they're not talented. I mean, they think they are. They do get the riches of this world. But if you really look at it, like Bob Dylan's horrible. Like you could find anybody on a street corner and say, sing this song, and they do better. I mean, he has no voice. He seems to be a wretched person. He's not happy. He's got fame and fortune, but like literally his catalog is just garbage. Like I said, he's got some good like poetry, but other artists with actual talent can take his songs and make them actually good. But his versions are horrible. Katy Perry, like I said, atrocious. Like her songs are, if you have to listen to one of her songs, it like hurts your ears. So it's almost like this. It's a false fame and fortune they get. And the other thing is those people, you think of somebody like, I don't know, who's somebody who's like really famous right now? Like say Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
She's got like more money than she could ever spend. Those people all answer to handlers and people who are above them that control what they say, what they do, their schedule, when they get free time, what they can do. I mean, they're controlled like more so than any normal person who works a 9 to 5 job. They are not like what you think they are. They're basically a tool that is used by others to make them money as well. And their every movement is choreographed, written down. Like they can't just, today, you know what? I'm just going to take the day off. I'm just going to like lounge, stay at home, watch a couple of movies. Their publicist and their, I don't know, whatever they have, their PR, whatever, their people that they would be like, no. You got to go to this radio station, be there by 11. Then you got to thing at this thing. Then you got to photo shoot. And then we got to get on a bus. And then we got to go to the airport. And then you got to fly. They don't have any freedom. So the illusion of it's like, oh, I just got to be rich and famous. It's like they have no idea what they're getting into, and it's not what people think. These people are controlled and broken. Like someone like Justin Bieber, that guy, like he's broken, man. Like I don't know. Like I can't believe we haven't heard about the Justin Bieber suicide yet. Because I mean, anytime you see him, he's just been like turned out, broken. And look at Britney Spears. Look what they did to her. I mean, she's literally a mental patient. These people aren't what you think they are, and they're not living the life you think they're living.
Yeah, it seems like
look how quickly like everybody turned on Katy Perry for faking that rocket thing.
Oh yeah, that was like
her life, like
hours.
If she was to get online and just start scrolling through all the people that were commenting on her on that Blue Origin rocket ride or whatever she faked, they were just thrashing her like horribly. So yeah, these people,
that has to take a toll on somebody.
Yeah, and it's like I said, they're broken. There's the MK Ultra, all this stuff that they do, the SRA stuff that they do to these people when they're children. Like, why would so many Disney kids end up complete psychopaths?
Yeah,
like what happened? Like, you know, look
what happened to
one's one, two's a coincidence. After you get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these people that literally, like, what's her name? Hillary Duff, I think, is the one.
Yeah,
she's like basically I don't know. I mean, if they still had asylum, she would be one of the first ones that went in. I mean, these people are broken. Like they have to have somebody that basically choreographs every move they do throughout the day, or they would do something immediately that would destroy their fame and fortune, because these people are an absolute mess. And it's just so weird that so many of them are like Disney kids. Like, what are they doing to these kids? But I mean, because you mentioned something in your email I wanted you to hit on, and you mentioned cryptids.
Oh yeah, cryptids.
So yeah, I'd love for you to get into cryptids, because like
I am to some extent, as far as, and I am not as much of a believer as others, but a lot of Bigfoot stuff. Getting into Dogman, and there was one thing that I was really got my attention with the whole Dogman cryptid, and it was, I can't remember the name of the shoot. Was it I guess one of the saints was actually illustrated as a dog.
Yeah, and a dog-headed.
And so.
Well, and then you got Anubis.
Yeah, Anubis too. So the of Egypt, of the ancient Egyptian. So there's that. That's very interesting, and it kind of lends itself to some level of maybe there's something to it. I'm kind of, for a long time, I've kind of been like, well, I really need to see a better picture than this blurry photograph of this shape that kind of looks like a Bigfoot, or the Loch Ness monster, which I kind of think is, I don't really believe in the Loch Ness monster at all. But then you have things like the skinwalkers. You have what's that one? I always forget. I can't really. The Wendigos. Those are kind of interesting. They're not really. Those are more entities, I think, than actual.
Yeah, like rakes.
Animals. Yeah. Something along
well,
more
I mean,
spiritual in
people
nature.
don't understand. The Bible literally mentions dragons.
Yeah.
The Bible mentions dog-headed tribes. Mm-hmm. The Bible mentions the long necks. The Bible mentions the dogmen of Moab, or the lion men of Moab.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible mentions satyrs, which are half man, half goat. And they just tell you, like, oh yeah, the satyrs came out of the woods, and so and so went up against the lion-headed men of Moab, and it's just like people brush that off, like, oh, that's just mythology, or it's like, no, like these things existed. The Egyptians, all of their pantheons of their gods were all human animal hybrids. Bigfoot's a hybrid. I mean, they've actually, these are
like genetically engineered
chimera, because Well, you look at Esau, who was born with red hair all over his body. That's a Sasquatch. A lot of Sasquatch are light brown or red. That's the Sasquatch Genome Project that Scott Carpenter used to be a part of with David Paulides and Dr. Melbum. They got Sasquatch. They got Sasquatch DNA. Really, actually, ingenious how they did it. They had spots where they knew there were these things were, so they put bait out. Food. They like peanut butter, and there's certain things that they really like. And then they took packing tape and they wrapped it out, sticky side out, all the way around these tree trunks. So when they leaned against the tree trunks to grab whatever they'd given them, it pulled hairs out.
That's interesting.
So they got the what do you call it? What's the little bulb at the end of the hair where the DNA is?
The hair root, I guess.
Yeah, the follicle.
Yeah,
they got a bunch of those, and so what they did was they sent them to like 3 or 4 different universities under DNA sequencing labs, but they didn't say what it was or what they thought it was or where they got it. They just said, "Can you sequence this DNA sample?" And they all came back with the mitochondrial DNA of a female human, and the nuclear DNA of the father is unknown. There's no trace of in the genome database of what the male could have been. So, I mean, and then you talk to people who see like Sasquatches do these really crazy things, like things that don't make sense, how they can appear and disappear. And they've seen them come like in and out of portals. To me, they're Nephilim. They're human women and fallen angel males. And the reason, like, nobody's ever caught a Sasquatch and you can't get a clear photo of them. Why can't you get a clear photo of them? They have the ability to make your film or video or whatever blurry so you can't see detail, And then the what was the other thing about the Sasquatch that was crazy? I have my own, like, people talk about those tree knocks. How they take a stick and they hit a tree and then they wait. They come back and they talk about how Sasquatch use tree knocks to communicate. I don't think they're tree knocks. I don't think they're taking a stick and hitting a tree with it. Because think about it, these things are massive. If they hit a stick against a tree just once, it would shatter the stick. Like they couldn't. I think they're doing it with their jaws. I think they're doing like jaw pops.
Oh yeah.
I think they do it with their jaw and their tongue, and it sounds like a tree knock, hitting a stick against a tree. But I think they're actually popping their tongue in their jaw and communicating. To me, that makes a lot more sense. That it's more of they're able to do like a jaw pop with their tongue, kind of. Like people can do it, but like these things can make it really, really loud.
When it is loud.
And so there was some other stuff that to me screams fallen angel human women. They're Nephilim. And
so you think, this is going to ask, you think, so Bigfoot, as we know them, are Nephilim, basically?
Yeah, I think they're Nephilim.
Okay.
I think the DNA proves it. If it's half female and half unknown, to me, that's the definition of a Nephilim. And then like all these, like the ancient Egyptians, I mean, the Bible tells us that the reason that the world was flooded was because all flesh was corrupted. And that includes the animals. They were mixing stuff. And so you have these things that had a bird head in a human body, or an insect head in a human body, or a dog head in a human body. To me, it's pretty straightforward. It's not a mystery. And yeah, I mean, even like the giant of Kandahar that the military apparently got into it with, there's just too much to it that to me screams, it's a Nephilim.
The red haired.
So I guess technically after the flood, they were called Rephaim instead of Nephilim. It's a Nephilim, but there were Nephilim. See, that's the other thing, is that when the flood happened, it didn't kill things that live in water. Like all the fish would have been fine with the flood. They wouldn't have cared. There's a lot coming out now on mermaids. And what's interesting about the mermaids is the Bible talks about them, because when on Genesis 6, when the angels mated with the women and made these things, their punishment was the fallen angels were sent to Tartarus. And they're in chains until Judgment Day. Well, the Bible also says what happened to the human women that went along with this.
Mm-hmm.
And it says they were turned into sirens. Sirens are mermaids.
Yeah. The mermaids.
So there's this thing about these elites who pay all this money to eat mermaids. Have you got into that rabbit hole?
I've never heard of that before. No.
Yeah, they have these elite parties where they actually serve mermaid.
Wow.
And they have like live mermaids in tanks, and they have a way of catching them. I haven't gotten really into it, but they have a way where they can catch them pretty successfully. And you know, these people are like, oh, there's no way people are eating mermaids, and I'm like, why not? They exist. The Bible says they exist.
So they wouldn't be like what we think of as a mermaid, where it's
they're very, from what I understand, they're, you know, because people think about a mermaid's like this beautiful hot chick with like a fish tail. They're like horrible monsters. They look awful. Yeah. They're just disgusting. Because if God's going to punish them and make them sirens, he's not going to make them gorgeous, you know. Mm-hmm. I guess they can make vocalization that's very alluring. You hear it like at night on a ship, and you hear the sound, and it's like, oh, what's that? Let's go over that way. Mm-hmm. But if you see him, it's literally a monster.
Yeah.
They're not Ariel from Disney.
Yeah, or what's her name?
Daryl Hannah.
Daryl Hannah.
Yeah, it's not like that. Like, these things are like, if you saw one, you'd probably just die. I mean, they're hideous.
Yeah.
But apparently it's sort of like children's blood and adrenochrome and stuff. The elite believe that eating the mermaid flesh does some wonderful things for you, apparently. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. I've never seen, like, I've always been into cryptids. I believe in them because I believe the biblical narrative about these monsters that exist.
Mm-hmm.
Never seen one, though. Never even...
Yeah.
Never heard anything or seen anything. Nothing that ever made me think, oh, what's going on here? It's just like, I don't know. I know that people who claim to have like had Dogman encounters and stuff like that say that, you know, there's people that like, oh, I wish I could see a Dogman. They all say, no, you really don't. It's a horrible, horrible experience, and it's terrifying, and it never leaves you. And so I think that's probably one of the reasons I've never experienced any of them, because I know there's some people that say, oh, you know, the Sasquatch, they're actually nice, and you can like trade with them and leave them food, and they'll leave you things. And, you know, they act like, oh, the natives used to trade with them, and they're not. I mean, they're literally when Nephilim die, their spirits are demons.
Mm-hmm.
So these aren't things you want to be, you know, making friends with and seeing on a regular basis, because they're demonic.
I've heard stories about like the Bigfoot and specifically maybe Dogman too. Maybe those two, where they're actually being, I guess, housed or contained underground and used for some type of military application. That are actually being created or bred or propagated.
The Dogman are.
Dogman are?
I think what they did was they probably got a hold of some actual, you know, Nephilim Dogman type DNA, and they messed around with it until they got basically, because you know how they talk about super soldiers?
Yeah.
Oh, the army's got, you know, they're creating this. I think that's what they're talking about. They just call them super soldiers. I think they tweaked with that stuff until they basically created what are now being seen as Dogmen, who some people say that, you know, sometimes they escape, or they actually let them out on purpose and monitor them to see kind of how they behave, to see if they've got it right, you know. But yeah, I mean, I'm a believer that everything that we're either given or shown is at least 50 years old. Like, I think the AI, I think they were using AI a long time ago. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of the video, like the Kennedy assassination or whatever, I think they were using AI. I know for a fact they were using Photoshop decades before anybody ever heard the word. So I believe that these things that sound absolutely outrageous are just technology that we just aren't privy to.
Yeah. Or make us believe.
So, I mean, even cloning, I mean, they put on the show like, oh yeah, we did Dolly the sheep, and then kind of stopped right there.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah. Well, first of all, no, you didn't. And secondly, that Dolly thing was. I mean, I've read things and researched things where they were cloning humans back in the 1930s and 40s, and then
Oh, wow.
so you got to imagine like now they've mastered it. It's got to be. I mean, look at all the clearly different versions of Joe Biden.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like some of it, I think are masks. There's a lot of celebrities who don't. They're clearly not. Eminem's not the same Eminem that we all knew. Dave Chappelle is clearly not the same Dave Chappelle that started off. I think Kanye's not the same Kanye. There's a lot of them, and it seems like a lot of them are the ones that go off the reservation. Like when Kanye started talking and Dave Chappelle started refusing to do certain things and talking, and then suddenly they either go to rehab or to Africa.
Right. Yeah. Like,
and then they come back and they're, and it's like, that's not, I mean, some of them, they don't even put like the same tattoos that the people had. I mean, it's like, I think they do that as a tell and say the people who have eyes to see will notice, and the rest of them will just assume it's the same person.
But I mean, don't they kind of have to?
I believe they have to tell you
some type of
that's the only reason. I mean, that's the only explanation for all the stuff that are in movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
is they have to tell you, and I think
like the number 33. So
well, all right. So the 33 thing, I'm kind of divided on because it happens so much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Here's what I don't know if they just put 33 in all these things to like as a signal to their other people to like, oh, okay, I get it.
This is or whatever.
Or if God is doing it on purpose and making, like when they say like 33 people died in a plane crash.
Yeah.
Is that just, did they just, maybe it was 40, but they put 33 just so that like somebody would know, oh, we instigated that plane crash.
Mm-hmm.
Or is God making it so 33 people did die, so they have to print 33? Like, is God sending these little, like, leaving breadcrumbs,
right?
Like to tell you, like, so I don't know if it's fabricated and it's just signaling, or if God is literally like it really was 33 that because remember when COVID first started, they'd always say 33 cases in Denver, 33 cases here, and there's like a ton of them. Everything was 33. Was that them signaling that or was that God really? I mean, it really was 33 every time.
Maybe a little bit of both. One thing that really sticks out in my mind is kind of along the same lines as well. The 33 number just appearing, seemingly not necessarily randomly, but appearing. One of the most ones that I really remember, as far as just sticking out and saying, okay, this is so obvious, was in the latest Top Gun movie. I don't know if you saw that, Top Gun Maverick. I don't know if you saw that movie.
I saw it, but I'm one of those people that like I'll see a movie and then like a week later, like I don't remember.
You forget about it?
I might remember maybe one if somebody says something. I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that. I forget them. Like right after I watch them, I don't remember. Yeah. I can watch a movie. There's a lot of times I'll watch a movie and while I'm watching, I'm like, I think I've seen this.
Yeah,
but I don't really remember. And like some of it seems like similar, but like that part I don't remember. So it's like which is kind of a gift because I can watch a movie twice in like 6 months and it's like seeing a brand new movie.
Yeah.
So I saw it, but I don't remember any details.
Yeah. There was one scene there in particular. It was like towards the end of it where there was a big dog fight and Maverick or Tom Cruise was firing the machine gun at another plane, and it showed the round count ticking down, and it showed it very clearly that he would fire off a burst from the gun on the jet, and then it landed a number, and they did it again, and it stopped very clearly at the number 33. And I think that was one of the things where that's just too obvious. That they
it's like Neo's ID saying birth date was 9/11.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, they definitely put that stuff, and I think that is I don't have a better name for it. I call it a karmic law.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, you can mess with my people, but you have to tell them what you're doing, and they don't have a choice.
Yeah, it's the other. I believe that totally there has to be.
Because the Bible actually talks about how Satan went to heaven and petitioned God when, he was killing all the Nephilim and all the, so you had all these unclean spirits that petitioned God for 10% of them. And God agreed. You can have 10% of them that you're in control of that walk the earth. And I think that 10% is still probably, I don't know, tens of hundreds of millions, maybe more. And so you think there's still 90% of these unclean spirits that aren't even released upon the earth.
Yeah.
Satan got 10, God gave him 10% to do his stuff with. But you think about how many there really are, it's pretty crazy. I was actually going to make a video on this, but I was thinking about, have you thought about, see, I'm one of those people who believe the earth is about 6,000 years old.
Yeah, you don't go by what carbon dating, where we're millions of years old.
I go by biblical. The thousand, I think we're 6,000 years, and here's how you tie it in biblically. And when I researched this and figured this out, it blew my mind. I think I'm onto something. I think I'm right. I don't think, and that's another thing is like when a lot of things people don't think about when you wake up to certain things, then when you hear the media or Hollywood or politicians or the news or anybody push certain narratives, you instantly know it's impossible. When they say, "Oh, we found this thing," it's 60. The dinosaurs were killed out 65 million years ago. Well, when you're convinced and know, and you've got biblical backing that the Earth is 6,000 years old, when they say 65 million years ago, you immediately just dismiss it and you don't even give it a second thought. And you don't. It's just, I think all these false things, these lies, like the fake history and all these things, the age of the Earth, I think it does build up in people. I think the more deceptions that you fall for, I think it does something to you spiritually. And I think a lot of the people you see that are clearly there's something really wrong with them. I bet anything like the moon landing, you throw it at them, they would 100%. They believe it. And I think that one of the reasons they do that is, I think spiritually, once you amass a certain amount of beliefs that are completely lies, I think it does something to you.
Yeah.
And
like the whole.
So let me tell you why I think the Earth is 6,000 years old. Okay, so we all know God created the earth in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. Right? And we also know the Bible says that 1,000 years with God is like a day, and a day is like 1,000 years. So it's telling you a year and 1,000 years are interchangeable. So what did God create on the fourth day? On the fourth day, he created the luminaries, the sun, a greater light to rule the day, and a lesser light to rule the night. So on the fourth day, God created the light of the world, the sun, S-U-N. If you look at creation and go 4,000 years, what happened at the 4,000 year mark? God gave us the sun, the S-O-N, the light of the world.
Oh, okay.
That happened at the 4,000 year mark. And on the 4-day mark, he created the sun on the fourth day and the 4,000th year, because a day with the Lord is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. So they're interchangeable. So if Christ was here on around the year 4,000, and that was 2,000 years ago, we're now around 6,000 years. And what did God do on the seventh day? He rested.
Rested.
What happens at the end of this age? We have 1,000-year millennial reign. So we worked the first 6,000 years, and we rest on the 7,000th. God worked on the first 6 days, and he rested on the seventh day. And in both cases, the sun was created on the fourth day, or 4,000th year. And when I was figuring that out, it blew my mind. I'm like, we're at the 6,000 year mark, and that's when the tribulation happens, and then the millennial reign, and we rest on the seventh day, which is the seventh millennium, 7,000 year, or the 7,000th year, we rest for that 1,000 years. So that tells me two things. One, that I think there's biblical evidence that the earth is 6,000 years old. It also tells me we're like really close to the end. Because if Christ died at, say, I think they say like what, 33 AD or 30.
Yeah, it's 30. Was he 30?
Might have been 30 AD.
Okay.
Because he was like 33 years old, and I think he was born around.
I was going to say he was 33.
3 BC or something like that.
Yeah.
Either way, it's 30 to 31, 32, something like that. And we're in 2025. So when we hit 2030, I mean, we got to be close, man. I mean, it's a year or two either way.
Yeah.
We're talking. So you have to have a 7-year tribulation prior to that. So, I mean, we're looking at 2032, 2033, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the numbers, and that depends, that also, I think that the whole year thing is, I think they screwed with it. And because like I said in my video, like if you would have asked somebody in 526 BC, what year, they wouldn't have said 526 BC.
Yeah.
They would have said, oh, it's year, 3000 something, because they would have started it, I think, because if we're really around the year 6000, they would have thought it was the year, 2500 or 3000 or something like that.
Yeah, it makes no sense for them to count down.
Right. And what were they counting down to? Like, what did everybody think? Like, what happens when we get to 0? Nobody, they would have just told you like the year from creation to the point you asked them. They would have said, oh, it's year, 1560. But we already had in 80 a 1560.
Mm-hmm.
So really what you have to do is count from 1560 up to that 80 version, and that would have given you the true year that you were early in.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have put you at the year 3000 something. So that's why when I see things say, oh, in the 14th century, I'm like, it's really not, though, because you just cut off 4,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then started calling it AD and starting it at 1 again. So I always thought, I don't know, I'm pretty confident in that the earth is around 6,000 years old. And then the geology of places like the Grand Canyon, where the layering of sediment proves A, the age, and B, the flood, because those layers of sediment that were laid down, like in the Grand Canyon, they agree it happened like, a lot of people, they try and tell you that like, oh, each layer is like, 1,000 years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And these geologists that study go, no, this all happened like within like hours.
Yeah.
All these different sediment layers. And I've heard it explained how when the flood happened, there was also, it wasn't just the earth flooded. There was also tsunamis, earthquakes, all kinds of stuff was going on. Because he was literally trying to make sure he killed everything, right? Except Noah. And actually Noah's boat shouldn't have survived. That was like divinely protected as well.
Mm-hmm.
But these tsunamis, what they were doing was they were coming in, sucking back out, coming back in. They were moving back and forth over the.
Mm-hmm.
And every time it would, come in and stop to go back, kind of like a tide.
Yeah, laid down sediment.
Everything that was carrying with it sank. It went straight down, and then the water went back out, and then it grabbed a bunch more gunk, come back in, drop all the sediment, and these layers were formed. So they could prove the age of the earth based off the sediment layers. If you take out each layer is 1,000, like a tree ring, like if you throw that out, then you can prove that it all happened over. And that's kind of like the mud floods and the fossilization of all these things, where they find creatures that were like chewing on food and they're like fossilized. It was like instantaneous. Like it just,
like the mud fossils you're talking about?
There's a lot of animal fossils that they find that like they've still got food in their mouth, or they're like in the process of giving birth, or they're like they were doing something.
But that's basically the mud fossils, because there's people who say that.
Yeah, they were all like just living their life, doing their thing, and just in an instant they were like basically fossilized. It's not like all of them are running or laying on their side. Like most of them were actually in the act of doing something, and basically were frozen in time and fossilized. It happened like instantly. So it's super fascinating. And I think one of my beliefs about dinosaurs, because that's all made up, I think there were, I mean, the Bible says there were dragons. I think one of the reasons they made up the dinosaur was because they knew that eventually people would start finding these big reptile bones, which I think were dragons.
Well, the way they come together,
they had to have a cover story for it.
Yeah. And
the first quote unquote dinosaur fossils found was like in the 1850s or the early 1900s.
Yeah.
Like people think, I mean, you would have been finding dinosaurs in the 1400s because all these buildings and structures they built, they would have been uncovering bones for centuries. And the first dinosaur fossils found were like in the 1850s.
Yeah.
It's totally a narrative. It's just nonsense. And I think it was to cover for the fact that they would be either giants like humans or just these really big animals or dragons. And I think
the fossils that they have, I think the quote unquote dinosaurs, like when they put together the skeleton, I think they're just kind of like a hodgepodge of bones that they kind of piece together because they don't even really make sense. You just look at like the T-Rex. Why would he have like such little tiny arms?
Well, another thing, like some people did some studies on like the Stegosaurus and the T-Rex and all that.
Yeah.
That there's no way they could have mated. Like a Stegosaurus couldn't have gotten on top of another Stegosaurus.
Yeah.
They could not have mated. So I think they made these fanciful creatures, but then when you really look at it, you're like, that's not going to work.
Nah, doesn't make
but
sense.
they look cool when you in books and movies. But yeah, a lot of dinosaur bones, actually the dinosaur bones in museums, none of them are, they claim that the real bones are radioactive. So they can't put them on display. So they basically make like molds of them and they use ground up chicken bones.
Oh, yeah.
So even if you see a full T-Rex skeleton, none of it's real. It's all
it's polymer or something.
It's like, it's because that thing never existed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people don't realize the level of deception that they live under.
Yeah. Since you mentioned radiation, I was looking at something a few days ago, and the conspiracy that this kind of goes in a different direction, but segue into something else. But like nuclear bombs aren't real in terms of
I've known that
what they're able to do.
20 years,
and it goes back to what you're talking about. How AI has been around since the 40s and 50s, and when you look at like explosions of quote unquote nuclear bombs being tested, the most famous
those houses.
Yeah, there's like blue over.
Yeah,
like
that didn't age well. It does not hold up if you look at it today.
It just doesn't. It looks
in the 1930s or 40s. People saw that film. It'd have been like, oh my god.
Yeah.
In 2025, when you see those houses, you're like, okay, that looks like balsa wood. It looks like high pressure air hit like a toy house. And now can we talk about the camera that filmed that? Like, how did that?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
how the camera
was? Can we like have those cameras today? Because apparently that camera was awesome.
Yeah.
People were easier to fool back in 70 years ago or whatever because everybody trusted the government. Coming off World War II, they just thought America was just the greatest, and the government was, would never lie to you.
Yeah.
So they could show them anything, and of course they believe it because why would they why would they lie? That wouldn't even cross their mind.
Yeah, not back then. No. Yeah.
And Chernobyl is now a animal sanctuary.
Yeah.
Nagasaki and Hiroshima were serving food and were rebuilding within a week. And if you look at photos of Nagasaki and Hiroshima now, they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
But the first reports that came out before they clamped down on it was that they were firebombed. And if you really want to go deep on the whole Nagasaki Hiroshima thing, There, you can look up. It's on the internet. There's a list of the 20 most decimated cities during World War II, or I think it's like the 40 most decimated cities of World War II, and Nagasaki and Hiroshima are like in the 20s.
Yeah, like
Dresden is like way above. Like, oh, the one we hit with the nukes, like,
yeah,
wasn't that bad, but like Dresden was, it's like number 4 or something like that.
It's like London too.
Yeah, London, Dresden, all these places are way higher up on the destruction level than Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So, I mean, you just got to it doesn't take that long. You just got to have the desire to know truth.
Right.
If you're focused on, I just want to know the truth, it doesn't take that long to find it out. And one thing I've found is I think people, whether knowingly or subconsciously, a lot of people like being lied to because it's comfortable. Because a lot of times, like, if they knew the truth, it would be very uncomfortable for them. It would destroy their paradigm. The world's not what they always thought it was, and it would be too much for them. So they like the comfortable lie. They're okay with that. Sounds great. Oh, we went to the moon. That's awesome. And they just, that's it. They're done. They move on but Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So truth is obviously very important, but a lot of people don't, like, when people say, like, oh, I really appreciate honesty. I think even Jim Carrey made that movie. Was it Liar Liar, where he couldn't lie? He was just, everything he said was the truth, and nobody liked him. Like, they were all like hated him because he told the truth. Truth isn't, people don't really want to hear truth. It makes them very uncomfortable.
No, yeah, I agree. They don't want to. It destroys their paradigm. It destroys would affect their self-esteem if people are actually honest.
And like what I was saying the other day on a video about Matthew 24, when his disciples asked him what the signs of the end would be. And he could have led with anything, like the wars and rumors of wars. And, just, he had a whole list of stuff he could have rattled off. But he started off with, take heed, let no man deceive you. Like, that was his number one sign, is being deceived. And so, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how people can believe so much nonsense when we all know that the great deceiver is the God of this world. And people just don't want to believe they're being lied to. Like they say, it's easier to be lied to than to convince someone that they've been lied to, or whatever that saying is. Because they have this wall they put up. We're like, nope, we went to the moon, and 9/11 was airplanes from guys in caves with box cutters.
Yeah.
And they don't want to hear anything else, because it's a paradigm shift, and then they'll do whatever, they'll tell themselves whatever they have to tell to avoid that unpleasant truth.
Yeah. They can't wrap their heads around that.
Well, also it sets them apart from the herd. If 99% of the people think one thing and you're like, yeah, but you're now ostracized. You're an outcast. You're a weirdo. You're a conspiracy theorist. You wear a tinfoil hat. You can't come to our parties and play at our playground because you're weird.
Yeah.
And people are so worried about, what's really weird is on the internet, they're worried about, shame, like social shaming, but it's 50% of that would be bots. And the other 50% are people that you'll never meet in your entire life.
Yeah.
So why do you care? But they do. They really care. They do not want to. They don't want to be that like yellow flower in a field of red flowers. It just terrifies them.
I don't want the negative comment.
And I think that's why they went along with COVID so willingly, and everybody consented to this nonsense, was because, well, I don't want to be that guy. Everybody's going through that door. I'm going through that door too,
Yeah. Well, I think that gave them a sense of comfort. Also, just the fact that we are all going through this together, and we all have to do this certain thing, and we all have to wear this mask. And
they use that against us by saying, what was their phrase? It was kind of like, we're all in this together or something. It was whatever the phrase was. They really pushed it hard on the media to make this like, if you go along with this, you're with the majority. Like you're right. And everybody, and I also think that people that wore masks, a lot of them liked it.
Yeah, I think it's like a security blanket, I think, for a lot of people.
And I think subconsciously it was a way to like mask their shame. Because I think a lot of people have shame over their behaviors, but they don't want, obviously, the world to know that. But when they were given this opportunity to like, oh, you can like cover your face and nobody will know who you are. It was like this identity masking that really appealed to them. Like, I can go into a store and nobody knows who I am. You know, I think it was really weird. And the fact that there's still people today that wear them, like there's still people that like drive around by themselves wearing a mask.
Yeah, I see them too.
If you tell me those people don't enjoy wearing a mask, then you're insane.
No, they can't give it up. They're waiting for the next.
It was like that was the greatest thing that ever happened was when the masks. Like I used to tell people when the masks went on, the masks came off. Because you actually saw people for what they really were. Even though they thought, like, in their mind, they were hiding it. But really, it was like a neon sign flashing that, you know, that you were, that A, you liked it, and B, it was probably to hide your shame.
Yeah. It'd be a sense of the term you used earlier, virtue signaling as well. A little bit, I think. Where I'm doing this for the betterment of society.
Well, they were telling people like, I do not want to kill your grandma.
Yeah, exactly. So
you can tell from across the room that I do not want to kill your grandma. The virtue signaling was off the charts, you know. I mean, I'm really glad I missed that because I didn't really I didn't have like the places I go out here, if I do, nobody was wearing a mask. Yeah. The only time you'd see a mask is if it was like a tourist coming through and they stop like for gas. They get out of the car and they have a mask on, and you'd be like, everybody could look at each other like, what the fuck? But there was one town I went to. I was going to get, what was it? I think I was going to get, was it fingerprint cards or something? There was something I had to do. I had to go to this town that's like, I don't know, it's probably an hour and a half or 2 hours away. And so I drove to this town and the place was closed. I think it was actually, I was getting blood drawn because I was going to get this part-time job where I helped other older veterans that needed assistance. And they had to take blood because like, I think it was like a TB thing, like a screening to make sure you didn't have tuberculosis to be around these people that are compromised because they've been subjected to Agent Orange or something. So they go, yeah, you got to go to this town and go to this address, this clinic, and they'll draw your blood and then we'll get the results. I was like, okay. I went there, and as soon as I got into the town, it was weird because before I saw anything, I could feel it. Like, as soon as I got there, it was just like this heaviness, and it just hit me, and I was like, okay. And there's a few towns I've been to in my life where the second I entered like the city limits, I could feel it. It was like something's not right here. And so I went like to this place, and it was closed. I was like, shit, place is closed. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll get something to eat while I'm here, and then drive an hour and a half, 2 hours back home for no reason because they were closed. And I started noticing all of a sudden, I looked around and everybody had a mask on. I'm talking everybody. Yeah. Like I didn't see one person. And I started looking at cars going by, and every car they were all wearing masks, and they all had their eyes were like really wide, like they were just scared to death. And I was looking around, and like, so I sat in my truck for a while. I was like, I'm just going to people watch. And I never saw one person without a mask and the look of fear. And I was like, I'm not getting out of this truck. I'm not even attempting to walk into a restaurant. I mean, I couldn't even imagine what would have happened if I walked into a restaurant or something. So I kind of watched these people, and then I was just like, this is like too creepy. This is like a Twilight Zone episode. And so I bailed. I drove back. But that was probably the worst or the most I saw of what social media was and the news or whatever was saying was happening,
Yeah.
I was like, I think they're making this stuff up, And then I went to that town and I was like, holy crap. Like every person here is in on it. Like they believe this. And once I figured out, like, now I know why it felt weird when I got here, and I got to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in the thick of that here where I'm at. Everybody wearing masks.
I was really fortunate. Again, I think God knows me like better than anyone, and He knows like what I'll tolerate and what I won't. And He really doesn't put me in situations where He knows I would probably kill somebody. He's just like no,
Yeah.
you don't need that. You don't need to be there. It's just.
I mean, I was told to leave or asked to if I didn't put on a mask from like restaurants when I would have to leave. And that was really retarded too. You had to wear a mask until you got to your table, and then when you
because COVID doesn't. COVID knows.
It knows when it's not going to.
Oh, he's sitting at the table. I'm like,
COVID's very
foiled again. I remember there was a couple of places I went into where I just walked through the door and they would say something like, "Oh, you don't have a mask," and then they would say, and they would have one, like, I don't know, they had like a box or something, and they would like hold it out, and I'd be like, "I'm good," and I never broke stride, and I kept walking, and that was it. Like they never said another word. I just walked around the store, and the only thing I noticed was like the other people that were shopping or doing whatever would see me and immediately like turn away or like turn around, and it was like, oh my God, like I thought when it first started, like everybody could see through it. I'm like, this is so obvious, like, right? This is just like ridiculous.
Nope.
And I was stunned by the fact that it seemed like the people who didn't go for it were, I mean, just a handful. Like I'd go somewhere and there might be maybe one other dude like that had that, like you look at him and like kind of do the head nod, like, yeah, you get it.
Yep. Yeah.
And it was like two of us in the entire store, It was like, oh shit, this is like not good. These people, and I think that was like a shit test. I think once the controllers or whatever saw the compliant level, they were like, oh dude, it's on. We can do pretty much anything at this point.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it was the whole thing was just, at least part of it was a test for compliance to see what they could get away with.
Yeah, I think it was compliance and IQ.
Yeah.
But see, like I don't take any shots or anything. Like when they first started putting that out, I was like, okay, people, this is where the people are going to draw the line. The masks, yeah, whatever. Like this is where they're going to draw the line. And then people were getting like freaked out because they were trying to get their second shot, and it was like, they were kind of saying like, yeah, there might be. And that's the other thing is the fact that there was no shortage. When you vaccinate like 80% of the country, it's like 300 million vaccines or whatever. And they had the supply, like they had it all. They're like, oh yeah, we got plenty. And the thing that really got me when I kept seeing these things that I kept thinking, okay, there it is. Like people are going to see this. It was like when like overnight, like every store had the plastic dividers for the cashier. They had all the stickers on the floor to tell you where to go. They had all the stuff, the stickers for the window showing a guy with a mask on, like a little outline of a face with a mask. And I'm like, how did everybody get when apparently the supply chain was like compromised because of COVID, but somehow all this material for like the windows and the floors and the dividers, and they all had like the plexiglass with the chains that were hanging up to the ceiling. I'm like, holy shit, this happened like overnight. Like every store had it. I'm like, how could people not question the fact that like, okay, maybe like Walmart, maybe, okay, but like every store, all the restaurants, like everybody, the gas stations, you go into the little mini mart, and they all had the stickers and the plexiglass hanging, and I'm like,
the arrows.
Wait a minute, like you got to be kidding me, right? Like they've gone too far, but they didn't. Like people didn't question it, and I was like, oh, we're in like really bad shape. This is not good news.
Yeah.
And all they did, because I remember I was somewhere, I walked in and they had like a television on the wall playing, and it was the Weather Channel, and I was like, oh, okay, the Weather Channel. all they were talking about was COVID. I'm like, this is the Weather Channel. I mean, the level of propaganda was like over the top.
No,
It was
that was
insane. And I was like, don't people like, doesn't that, I kept seeing all these things like, doesn't that like raise a red flag? The fact that the Weather Channel is not telling you anything about the weather.
Yep.
And like all these places got the same supply drop off, like at the same time. And I guess paid their employees overtime to put all that stuff up at that night when they were closed. And it just, I kept seeing these things going, okay, that's going to wait. And it was like, oh my God, it's not. These people they buy all of it. And that's when I really kind of like went into my shell. Like I really retracted. I was like, I can't go out there because everybody's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. I mean, I didn't go out much at all. I know.
And I honestly think it's gotten way worse since then. I think because I remember thinking how awesome it was during the lockdowns. Like if I would go into like Albuquerque, it was like,
yeah.
it was like, because I used to live in Albuquerque years ago, and you know, and it's like, it's not huge, but you know, there's quite a few people there.
Yeah. No, Albuquerque's
And it was like I had the whole town to myself. I was driving around. I was like, this is awesome. Like there's no traffic. Like I'm the only car.
Wow,
I might
really?
see a semi and a cop car or a taxi every now and again. And I'm like, this lockdown thing's awesome. I can get all the way across Albuquerque in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Hitting all the green lights because nobody's coming the other way to trigger it, you know? I'm like, this is awesome. I thought it was fantastic. But it was so weird. It was dystopian. It seemed like it was like post-apocalyptic, like there's no people.
Yeah, it was that kind of vibe for sure. Yeah, just it was a very strange time.
And then like, so like the day before like COVID and like the mask mandates, if you had walked into a bank wearing a mask, they would have slapped all the buttons and they would have had the cops surrounding the building.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah. Now it's just doesn't.
And all of a sudden, it was like you couldn't come in the bank without a mask on. I was like, wait a minute, this is like I'm living in like this is a Twilight Zone episode.
I think that whole 2 years was the Twilight Zone thing. It was.
But the compliance level of your average person. But what I did notice that was in the cities, it was like 100%. Like everybody was like crazy with their compliant. But then when you went out and I got out, to where I live here, it was like it wasn't happening. Nobody had a mask. Nobody's talking about it. It wasn't. There were no stickers and signs, and it was just like every other day. And I was like, oh man, they got the cities. You got to get out of the cities.
Yeah.
Because who knows what they're going to tell them all next time that they're going to believe. It could be something that, doesn't fare well for, somebody who can see. I mean, it might. I mean, they were making up just random stuff that people just obeyed. And what if it's like next time it's like if you see someone without a mask, you are authorized to kill them because they're trying to kill you. So it's self-defense. Like they could put that out there and people would go, yeah. And so it's like, yeah, I'm not. If they pull another like pandemic type thing, I am like, no way. Like I'm not even, because I would go into Albuquerque or something every now and again just out of curiosity. Like, is this like really kind of what they're saying? Are people really doing this stuff? If they do it again, there's no way. I'm just gonna go, okay, whatever. I opt out and I'm not going anywhere near people.
Yeah. That's one of the things being in the city. It's not I think it's going to not be a good place to be.
So you said you're West Texas?
Yeah. Big city in West Texas.
So like a large city in West Texas?
Yeah.
I could probably break that down to two places. One or the other is where I think you're probably at.
Yeah. Well, that's being more obvious. It's about as far west as you can get in Texas. As far as we're
at. So more like Southwest Texas.
Oh, that's pretty west. No, I mean about as far west as you can get. It's kind of southwest.
Is it about as far south as you can get on the western side?
Yeah, south of Panama. I'm in El Paso, so
yeah. I was going to say, just about to say, is there another state like right on the border there?
Yeah. So
I drove through El Paso one time. No, twice. Was it twice? I think I think it was once.
Yeah.
I used to live in Midland.
Okay. Yeah, I know where that's at.
So I drove from Arizona to Midland, and I went through El Paso. Got one of those vibes there too. I was not going to stop.
Yeah.
I just stayed on the freeway and went until I was not there anymore. I didn't.
Yeah.
There's certain cities, Los Alamos, New Mexico.
Los Alamos,
one of the creepiest places I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
There's something very wrong with Los Alamos. I think there's something really dark going on there. And I think the people are in on it. A lot of them are. I think it's sort of a Stepford Wives type vibe I got there. Where I don't know. Because that's where the national laboratories are.
Yeah, I know most of them.
And they have some underground stuff going on. And it's so weird. Because like Los Alamos there's people there. It's not huge, but it's not tiny. You don't see anybody driving around. Like it's almost like the pandemic, and this was years ago. The buildings are real, but they have this, like you feel like it's a movie prop. Like you could walk up to a building and push on it, and it would just fall over. It's a super, super creepy town. Like really creepy. Portland, Oregon is very dark. That's a bad place.
Yeah, probably Seattle too.
Seattle's terrible.
Yeah.
And the weather doesn't help because there's this dark, oppressing like feeling, and then it's like dark gray and misty. It's like really, and then the first person you come across is like insane. So you're like, okay, I'm getting out of here. I'm trying to think of some other cities I've been to. Santa Fe, New Mexico is pretty dark.
Yeah, I've been to Santa Fe a few times.
There's like an oppressive feeling there. It's weird because like I don't know, it's a Holy Spirit or something, but you can feel it when you're somewhere that probably better off not being there. But yeah, Portland is very demonic. I lived there for a long time until, and I saw it change. It didn't used to be like it is. It was actually back in the 70s and 80s, and it was actually a really nice city.
Yeah.
But I still have friends that live there, and I talk to them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there's like people just taking a dump right on the sidewalk," and I mean, it's just like I don't go into the city because like you see this, and this. I'm like, man, you got to get out of there. Even the outskirts, man, you got to get out of there. Robert Moore, what do you think about these hills like Devil's Tower is actually a petrified tree stump? The angels came down and cut down. The giants couldn't survive the flood. 100%. That's what I've always believed. I don't know what you think, but I've always believed that those like Devil's Tower and stuff are ancient.
You think that's a petrified tree? Ancient tree?
Giant trees that were miles and miles tall, and you're like, well, how would something chop that down? And it's weird because like none of them look like they were like hacked with an axe. You know, they all are just smooth across the top.
Yeah, it looks like they were actually broken or something. But then where would all the I guess where was the rest of the tree? If it
those are mountains.
The mountains? Okay.
Yeah. And the tree roots of those giant things are the lava tubes.
Okay.
That run under the entire. Well, I'm just focused on America. There's lava tubes that like run the entire United States. And those were the roots of these trees. But like, I mean, they're so perfectly cut. And you're like, well, what could do that? And I was like, oh, angels. And then, well, why? Because God was going to flood the world and didn't want things climbing up 3 miles high, you know? So that yes, Robert, that's exactly what I've always believed. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now.
Any questions in here? Oh, so did you see my video where I was talking about the birds that are all chirping at night now?
Yeah, I saw that.
And how I first noticed it in 2016. Yeah, it was 2016. That's when I first noticed because I'd moved from New Mexico back to Oregon,
Mhm.
and I was like laying in bed at night, and I was like, "Why are the birds chirping?" And everybody I brought it up to just looked at me like, "What are you talking about? Like you're weird." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I saw like TikTok videos or something on. I don't watch TikTok, but I watch like YouTube where they do
Where they do,
compilations.
yeah, TikTok.
And all these people are talking about the bird. The birds are all chirping at night. And I'm like, they've been doing it for 9 years, but I'm glad you guys are catching on. But do you hear it? Do you hear the birds at night?
Honestly, it's so noisy. I have a busy street behind my house. I don't really hear birds at night. Yeah, so I guess the answer would be no. Doesn't
Well,
mean
you
that
said
there aren't.
you spend some time like away in
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah. So
small area. You
yeah,
probably
and
you'll probably hear
I
them
still
if you.
don't. Yeah, I still don't. So I go. Yeah, not really. I mean,
See,
I
I go
start paying
outside
better
a lot,
attention.
even at
Yeah.
night, because I've got 15 dogs,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll like every now and again they'll start going like alert, something's up. So I'll step out there and either tell them to be quiet or shine a light and see if I can see what they're
Mm-hmm.
barking at. And it's like, why are there like 50 or 80 birds chirping? It's like 1:30 in the morning. And oh, that's the other thing. I live like I don't know. I live it's 82 miles to the nearest traffic light. Like I'm way, way out.
Oh wow.
And I was driving on one of these gravel dirt roads out here the other day, and I knew what it was right away because I've seen them a lot, but I took a pretty good picture. It was actually video. I was videoing it while I was driving up on it, and it turned its head, so I took a screenshot of the video because he actually looked at me. But and I saw it twice in like 3 days. It was a badger,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people have never seen a badger, but I had a badger kill some chickens once, and
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm not a huge fan of badgers, but yeah. So like I don't know. That's kind of like my life. I don't hear all the
Did you?
noise. I just
Yeah.
see like badgers. Oh, and my
Yeah.
dogs brought like I was in my house last night. It was pretty late. It was 11 or later. And I heard noise on my deck, so I opened the door and one of my dogs was on the deck with an elk leg.
Oh
It was
yeah.
like the leg and the hoof on the end.
Yeah.
And I've got several of those on my property that they chew on all the time, but I looked at this one and I was like, "Well, why would?" And there was another dog that was like kind of looking like it wanted to take it. And I'm like, "These things are like 2-year-old elk leg bones I have on my property. I have like tons of elk bones on my property because I know a butcher, and during elk season, he'll give me all the scraps that he cuts off the elks that people get, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll just bring it home and just throw it out to my dogs, and they'll chew on them for weeks, and they still chew on them. They're like over a year old, and then they're still chewing on them. But I was looking at this elk leg, and I'm like, okay, that looks fresh. Like I could see blood, and the dog was like really getting into it, like getting some good stuff, and I was like, there's no good stuff left on the elk bone legs I know of. So I'm like, okay. And then they started kind of fighting over it. And I'm like, all right, that's like they went somewhere and found an elk leg and brought it back.
Mm-hmm.
And so today I was coming home. I was almost home. And there were 5 baby elk in the road. I had to stop. And I think I got video of them too.
Mm-hmm.
But there was these baby elk. And usually when you see young elk, you just look around and you'll see the mom.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no mom. Like there's no adults. There was no herd. There was just 5 elk. And they looked like they didn't know what the hell to do. And then it dawned on me, it's like, oh, my dogs found that leg.
Yeah.
I bet their mom, something happened to their mom.
Mm-hmm.
But elk will, if something happens to the mother, the other female elk will basically take the elk under their wings and feed them, and protect them. But that's assuming they can find them, because I didn't see any elk anywhere except those 5 babies.
Yeah.
So hopefully they reunite with their herd. But like that's the kind of stuff I deal with when I'm hearing about all these people, can't go to Popeyes because all the blacks are fighting and this is happening and that's happening. And I'm like, there's 5 baby elk out here that might not have a mom. Like that's sort of my level of concern.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks.
So, I mean, I get it. Like you were saying earlier, how a lot of people just don't know how to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
If they like convenience,
Oh yeah.
they like. It was funny. I only use Facebook for like marketplace and some of the groups that are. I mean, when I say local here, I can mean 40 miles, but whatever. If I'm looking to buy something or I have something I want to sell, I can put it on there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have no friends. I don't follow anyone. I just go on there to either buy or sell if I need something. And so I went on this group that is, I don't know, it's from this little town about 60 miles away. And I was going to ask for like, because when you need like a certain skill set, like somebody that's an electrician or whatever, a lot of times you just go on there and say, hey, anybody know a good, qualified, honest, reliable electrician in this area? So I went on there and there was like, I saw this post and this lady was like, hi, we're new to this area. Does DoorDash deliver here? And like, she was crucified, dude. I just like, oh my, that's like not the way to like introduce yourself as a new member of the community. Because like I said, the closest stoplight is 80 plus miles away. And that town's another, that town's actually closer to Arizona.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, DoorDash? I guess you could call a friend and ask them if they'll make you something to eat and bring it over. That's DoorDash here. But it's like, so a lot of people are really into convenience. So like I said, Walmart's over 80 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And so people, and there are people that come out here sometimes to like get away, and they usually last about a year. Usually after the first winter, they're out. Like they'll buy a house, they'll put it back up for sale, and they're gone. They go back to the city. A lot of people came out to places like not just here, but a lot of really rural places all over during COVID to get away from the madness.
Uh-huh.
And then when it was over, they moved back to the same place that they left. So it's, people don't like any level of discomfort. Like it has to be convenience. You have to have a Starbucks within a couple miles. You have to have this. You have to have DoorDash. You have to have that. And it's like, so, being told, you need to flee to the wilderness. A lot of these people would die if they went to the world. They wouldn't last. Mm-hmm. But I believe God will take care of people who obey him. Like I said, I bought this property in this house out here in the middle of nowhere, and I was going to have to quit my job in order to do it because it was 2.5 hours away.
Yeah.
And so the mortgage company should have looked at my, and said, well, how are you have no income. If you quit your job, how are you going to pay, how are you going to buy this house?
Mm-hmm.
And it just did. They all said yes. And I was gone. So I do believe God will provide, and he'll find a way if you obey him and follow his commandments. And I don't know, like I said, theoretically, I shouldn't be here. Like none of it should have, even if I really wanted to and tried really hard, I think I would have been rejected. Like, no, the bank's not gonna allow this. We're not going to give you this much money to buy a house if you can't prove you can pay it back.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I got out here, my VA disability went through finally in 100%.
Oh, nice.
So it was like, wow, like you just have to have faith, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the alternative is being in those cities when all hell breaks loose.
Yep.
Because like I've always said that, like for me, I said this even back in the day when I lived in cities. It was almost like I knew somehow. I used to say the apocalypse will be televised. Like I knew even then, like I would be watching what's happening remotely, like on the television, going, oh, that's awful. But I wouldn't be anywhere near it. But I didn't know that. It just like, but I did, but not consciously. So I don't know. Like what I feel bad for is people who are, in a relationship where they've got like a spouse who, if you said, hey man, we really need to get out of here and move out in the middle of, the sort of like how COVID broke up a lot of families because like the one person was like, I'm not getting a
Getting the
injection.
shot. Yeah.
I'm not,
Yeah.
and it broke up a lot of families because one
Yeah.
person was really bought into it and the other person was like, no, I'm not doing that. I think that's kind of like what escaping to the wilderness would do, where a lot of people, one of the people in that relationship is like, the kids are in school, they have friends, we're not leaving, there's no Starbucks out there, where am I going to work, where am I going to get my hair done, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, again, that's being part of this world, and we're not supposed to be a part of this world. So you have to almost reject the material and the way this world operates in order to escape it. And I mean, I'm evidence that like you can do it. But I'm single, and it was easy for me to just, I didn't have any resistance from a spouse or children that like, I don't want to move out in where the cows are, and so I didn't have to deal with that aspect of it. But I do feel for people who are going to be right in the middle of it when it goes down, but it is a choice.
Yeah, it's this. I mean, like you said, for a lot of people, it's going to be a hard choice to
So,
take on.
Real quick, like, what are your thoughts on Trump?
I think he's just part of the system. He's just.
You don't think he's more than that?
Yeah, I've heard your theories on it. As far as he's potentially like the Antichrist, or going to help usher in the Antichrist.
I've been convinced he's the Antichrist for over a year, and I have this long list of biblical prophecies that he's already fulfilled for the Antichrist.
Oh yeah,
and he's never once like gone backwards. Like, he just keeps checking boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And the most recent one was I saw when he was kind of getting some pushback on the whole Iran thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there were all these like, most of them were politicians, like senators and stuff, and they were posting on X this full support about greatest president ever, you people don't understand, blah blah blah, and they were really riding his nuts. Like, it was like, okay, dude, you're like laying it on really thick here. Yeah. But there was like a lot of them that were doing that, and in the Bible says that he will come to power through flatteries. And I was just like, I just checked another box, man.
Yeah.
All these flatteries. Like, he's going to come in with flatteries. All these people saying this wonderful, how great he is. And I'm like, gosh, dang, there's another one. Check. So, yeah, I think now the false prophet, I've been leaning pretty heavy on Elon. I know a lot of people think, it's the Pope or whatever. A lot of people are saying the Pope. I don't. I think because the Bible says that the false prophet ushers in the worship of the beast. It uses basically what sounds kind of like some weird avatar that can speak, though, and also the mark. I think a lot of this stuff sounds like technology, especially the image of the beast that gives a voice, like it can talk. Mm-hmm. But it literally basically sounds almost like a robot or some sort of animated statue. Like, it doesn't sound like flesh and blood. It sounds like a android or something. And I just always thought Elon is like I don't believe Elon's what they say he is. I don't think he's runs any companies. I don't think any of that nonsense. Because like, he tweets all day and he plays Diablo like all night. Like, he's not running all these companies. Like, when they do a SpaceX launch, he says stuff like, it's real because it looks so fake. Like, he kind of tells you. I think he's a little autistic, and he kind of like doesn't really think through a lot of the things he says. He seems to have some really weird quirks, like he's on something. I don't know. But I mean, he's being propped up for some reason, and clearly it's technology related. And the false prophet, to me, it's heavy on the technology. And so I'm not 100% sold on it being Elon. It could be some other. It's going to be a tech person, though. I don't think it's going to be a religious figure. I think it's going to be a tech.
It could be like the whole Palantir thing. I don't know if you've heard of that recently that they're initiating, and that's definitely technologically, driven. So could be something with that too.
Yeah, and in that that big beautiful bill that Trump's still trying to push through.
Yeah, he's still
people are starting to get a hold of it and really look into it. And there's a lot of exemptions, and sort of like how pharmaceutical companies are like not liable and they can't be sued and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that stuff in there for AI, basically saying, hey, if AI comes out and there's no limits on it, you can do whatever you want. And if something goes bad, you're good. We won't blame you, So Palantir definitely, and they're building those big data centers like, what was it, Amarillo?
In Amarillo? I didn't know they're building one there.
It's either Amarillo or I think it's Amarillo. They're building a massive data center. And they're saying like the power of these things, they're building multiple, but one's in Texas, in Amarillo, I think. But and they've like already broken ground. Like these things are being, like the buildings are like up. They're just finishing them off. They're saying that the amount of power it would take to run those daily is more than like New York City per building. Like, it's like literally insane. While they push like the climate change thing at the same time, they're basically building these structures that will use. I mean, if you're worried about the grid going down, you're not going to build these things that basically use, a high percentage of the daily electricity that the entire United States requires. So there's a lot of like shenanigans going on. But I do believe that Trump is the biblical Antichrist, and I do believe he will eventually relocate to Jerusalem. I think America will be destroyed. That's probably when he'll move to Jerusalem. And what's interesting is, all this talk about these bunkers that everybody's building. The government has all these underground bunkers that can house like thousands of people. That it's interesting that the Bible basically says you can't hide there, that it won't work.
Can't hide underground,
that you will still be crushed, even if you're hiding in the caves, I think is what that says. You'll still be, there's nowhere to hide when God's judgment comes upon the earth. And it's funny that, like, wow, these guys think they're going to hide in bunkers and be safe, and they'll have all these supplies and air scrubbers and water purification, and they're going to be good to go, and they'll just resurface once everything's dust is settled. And I'm like, you guys don't read the Bible, do you? The people who flee to the wilderness that are on land are going to have a better shot, especially God's remnant and like the 144,000 and those that obey that he protects. I believe he's going to supernaturally. I don't think there's a rapture. I think that you're not going to be whisked away. You're still going to be here, but you're going to be protected. Like whatever the enemy throws at you, it's not going to, or it could even be like, they could walk right past you. You could be standing there. They don't even see you. Like, I think you're going to be supernaturally protected. But the people who think like we got the bunkers are going to be the ones that perish. Whereas the ones who are like standing like on a hillside in the forest are going to be fine. It's kind of crazy. Jack Lowe, what do you mean by Oregon? Did we say something that made you say Oregon? I don't know why you just said Oregon. No idea. We need more context, bro. But I was just looking at the phone to see if there were other topics that you had mentioned. I think. Proton Mail on the phone is kind of weird to navigate. Let's see.
We didn't cover everything. We were talking about end times and one world government.
You didn't talk about flat Earth.
Yeah.
Underground cities, we just
Yeah,
hit
kind
that,
of,
even though
yeah.
I wasn't really
Like the whole continuity of
bugging
government.
out, cryptids, leaving the cities, one world government, end times, flat Earth. Those are like the only things. I mean, flat Earth. I don't like saying flat Earth because people are programmed to like have a really
Yeah,
creepy reaction.
to dismiss you automatically.
I just say biblical Earth because it's
Yeah.
as the Bible describes it. Oh, Jack said that Oregon, they're building data centers there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the AI, I think it's gone past like the event horizon. Like there's no like reining this back in. It's going to
Yeah.
do what it's going to do, and it's going to propagate. And
Hey,
that's why I don't
about
participate. Like I've never used Chat GPT or Grok or anything. I don't do that because I don't know what it is because they've never really told us. But I have a feeling I kind of know what it is, and it's not something I just don't want any part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried Chat GPT. It says it saves time, that's for sure. But it's just basic stuff. I don't know how deep I'd want to get into it. A lot of people will say, well, you kind of need to know how to do this to do well in the future, but then how much of a future do we have anyway?
Yeah, I don't think,
yeah.
like I said, I think we have 10 years or less.
Yeah. Hey, what do you know about remote viewing? Like people.
I think it's another one of those things that the Bible tells us not to do.
Okay. You think everybody has, you think people have an innate ability to do that?
Like astral projection, remote viewing,
Yeah,
I view it all the same. It's basically necromancy.
Okay.
And sorcery. I think you're communicating, I don't know, with the dead.
Mm-hmm.
And the dead, I mean unclean spirits, because you can't. There is no communication between humans that die and the living.
Mm-hmm.
When people think they're talking to their grandma that died, or they think they saw, an old man in overalls. Oh, it's some guy that lived here 80 years ago. No, the dead are forbidden communicating with the living.
Well, they're not really dead spirits, or they're demons. It's demonic, right? I heard there's really no.
Yeah, they're unclean spirits. I mean,
yeah.
I always call things what the Bible says, like unclean spirits.
Unclean spirit. Yeah.
They're demons, but they're the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim because they were born without a soul. They weren't supposed to exist. So they're cursed to walk the earth because they can't go to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why Jesus told what he called the synagogue of Satan. He told them, "Where I go, you cannot follow," meaning there is no path for redemption to get to heaven because they're not made in the image of God. So they don't have any choice other than to roam the earth. And that's what people are talking to. These things are extremely intelligent. They've been around for 5,000-6,000 years, and so they watch people. So yeah, they can mimic your dead grandma. They can sound just like her. They can look like her. They can say things that like, oh, only my grandma would know that. No, you're dealing with unclean spirits, and they know your grandma better than you did.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that would be well on the same lines as far as like examples of like CIA and people looking for someone are able to locate them through utilizing these quote unquote remote viewers.
Yeah, I think they're being. Yeah. I think they get their information from unclean spirits.
So they're actually engaging in some type of, like say, like necromancy, and pretend it's being used for good because they're finding a fugitive or a missing person. Or
as far as I know, like the remote viewing on stuff like that, it's not very accurate. They don't do that well.
No,
but there's some things that they do get really good hits on. Like I think they probably use it to find certain locations, especially ancient sites, like where was the tomb of Gilgamesh, or that kind of thing, where they're looking for like Gnostic type stuff.
Okay.
Or they want to find a certain location, or where was, where's the tomb of so and so, or where's maybe some ancient city that was really into the into paganism and the occult. I think they probably use remote viewing for finding items and locations. And I think they get help because the people that are telling them where this stuff is, that's what they did. That was their thing.
Oh, okay.
So they're like, yeah, I'll tell you where the tomb of Gilgamesh is, or the tomb of Nimrod, or whatever. I think that's how they found, like, because they found Nimrod / Gilgamesh in Iran, and that was apparently the whole reason that they weapons of mass destruction. We got to get into Iraq.
Yeah.
And they sent a team to. They got the body and the resurrection chamber. They were. I'm sure they didn't just stumble upon that. I'm sure they used something like remote viewing or something, some sort of divination to get that information. What's it say here? Oh, so this guy, it says his Oregon's building data centers. It says his son is an electrician and has years of work in Oregon on Amazon data centers.
Huh.
Yeah, it's I mean, everything's nefarious. I mean, they're not, nothing's for our benefit. I mean, they flat out try and kill us, and then they forcing injections on people that they know that it's toxic and it'll kill you and lower the birth rate and stuff, but they want, then they come out and say, well, don't do this because it's bad for you. It's like I've always found, like, the way the world makes no sense, but people don't question it. One of the best examples is seatbelt laws.
Yeah.
So you'll get pulled over and ticketed if you don't wear your seatbelt. But motorcycles, you might even get pulled over by a motorcycle cop and given a seatbelt ticket. And so, I mean, I have a motorcycle. I ride a motorcycle. I understand how ridiculous it is for there to be seatbelt laws. In a car that has airbags, you still have to wear your seatbelt. But motorcycles, it's like, so none of it makes any sense.
No, I mean, this whole thing is they care more about enforcing victimless crimes. I think
it's revenue, and it's also it's a power play.
Oh yeah. I've heard a lot of people say it's going on down that line that every infraction, no matter how minor, can ultimately end up in a death sentence. So basically, if you say you get pulled over and got a seatbelt ticket and didn't pay it, and you get pulled over again, they find that you had an unpaid ticket and you have a warrant for your arrest. If you resist, they could ultimately use deadly force. So it's
I've been watching, like, a lot of these compilation videos on YouTube of, like, violent police interactions.
Oh yeah,
where it ends up like, and I mean, 90% of the time the person's totally at fault. I mean, to me, they look like suicide by cop, like they're trying to get killed. But the police, to me, come across as extremely low IQ. Like, the guy's doing something stupid, but I just saw you make 12 mistakes leading up to the altercation. It's like these cops are not intelligent individuals, and they actually have an IQ limit on police. A lot of people don't know there is an IQ limit. If you test too high of an IQ, they won't take you.
Oh yeah.
You have to be at a level where you're an order follower.
Yeah.
If you're an independent thinker with a high IQ, they won't take you. They'll reject your application. It's pretty crazy, but watch some of those. Like, I don't know what the name of the channel is, but they do like 1 hour police compilations where like 95% of them end in like bloodshed. Like, they're pretty brutal. And the people are clearly insane, and most of them are hopped up on something. But really focus on the police, how they react, what they say. Like, I mean, it's just simple stuff like this. I'm really against female police. I think it's a hatred of women to allow them to be police officers. But this armed suspect was running. He jumped out of the car and took off, and they started chasing him. So she's chasing him down the street, and you can see because of her body cam, she's running with a taser out. And I'm like, this is an armed suspect. Like, you saw the gun. He's already, like, the call was he shot it already, or he shot somebody. You pull him over, he runs, and you chase him with your taser.
Yeah.
I mean, just like stuff that, like, these people aren't the people that we give the authority to basically take away your freedom and give them a gun and everything. They're really low IQ. And a lot of them are jacked up on, like, it's the only time in their life they've ever had, like, authority, because they were probably a complete loser in high school and stuff, maybe got picked on, and suddenly they got this job where they're like, you do what I say and I have a gun. And it's not a good combination, but they literally choose these people based on the testing they give them. They have to fit a certain mold, and if you're outside those parameters, like you're too intelligent, you're too independent thinking, maybe you believe something that they're like, that's ridiculous, you're not going to get. And it's also a good old boys network where it's a lot of family members of, you know, your dad was a great cop and now he retired and now you're a cop, you know.
Yeah.
You get chosen because of who your dad or your uncle was, because they towed the line and they, you know, they played the game. And so, you know, you want to be just like your dad. So you're exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah.
But yeah,
well, that's eye opening. I was actually a cop for a few years.
What was that?
I said that's eye opening because I was a cop for like 2 or 3 years.
Did you see any of that kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, what I really did see was, and it was that cops who, you know, screwed up and got in trouble, you know, DUIs and you know, things that would really harm like a normal civilian. They weren't fired. They kind of got a slap on the wrist and just had.
Well, especially when you get up into, like, you know, if you're like the sheriff or the chief of police or something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, I know that police, when they get pulled over, a lot of times they'll open their wallet to get their license out to give the cop, and conveniently make sure you can't miss the fact that there's a badge in their wallet, like, or they'll set it on the dashboard, like, oh, where's my wallet? I'm looking for my license. Let me just put this badge up here.
Yeah,
you know. There's a lot of like, okay, you know, the thin blue line,
that kind of thing. That's definitely, that's definitely.
I was getting into law enforcement in Oregon, in Portland, because I did. I was a private investigator, and I was armed, but I did mostly video surveillance. I basically followed people around and videotaped them, and then I was also armed patrol and maritime patrol, where I did the rivers and the surrounding areas on vehicle patrol, and you know, armed and everything. And then I worked for an armored car company where I was rode in the back and delivered the money and all that.
Oh yeah.
And then I went into this place in Portland called OHSU. It's Oregon Health Sciences University. It's a giant hospital campus. They have a nursing school. They have 5150 holds, like all the crazy people. They have a place for the mental holds. They have it's the state body bank where all the corpses that are donated to science are delivered. It's a massive thing, and I was public safety officer there. I probably got into more fistfights there working there than in the rest of my life combined.
Oh yeah.
It was weekly. You'd get in and I mean, like a serious for your life, somebody's going down fist fight. And I had my like, I don't know what you call it, where like your muscles on your chest get separated from your ribs.
Oh yeah.
I've had that happen fighting. Just crazy stuff, because the cops, because they knew we had the mental hold facility there, the cops find crazy people downtown Portland and they bring them up the hill and dump them off for us. And a lot of them came to fight. Like, they were like, we're not having it. We're here to fight. And so as soon as they walked in the door, it was on. And that got really, but Yeah, it was weird because it was the state body bank. So we had access to the room where they did where all the medical students get to practice on these cadavers. And so when you first start, they're like, well, you got to go in there and kind of, because like somebody could show up in the middle of the night and need access to that room. They're either delivering a body or whatever. And they don't want the first time you go in there and see what it looks like to be the first time that you're with, escorting somebody in there. So they're like, you got to see this and, understand what's going on. So I went in there with there's only 2 or 3 of us, I think. And it was crazy because you think about people that donate their bodies to science, you think, yeah, it's probably pretty rare. Not that many people. They had bodies stacked like cordwood in there. Yeah. And the first thing they do when they come in is they shave every hair off their body. They take the eyebrows, everything, no hair. And then they over embalm them. So they blow it up really big and then they suck it all out.
To make everything loose, basically.
What's that?
To make everything loose. So
I don't know why they do it, but they swell them up with embalming fluid and then they drain it. And it's really weird because when I went in there, there were several that were in the process. They're on the tables and they're just comically bloated and there's no hair on them. They're completely naked. And then the ones that I guess are done, ready, they literally put them in this big cold room, but it's huge and it's got shelves and they're just lined up all the way down and the next row all the way down. There's just these bodies. And the first thing I thought when I went in there was that none of them looked real. It looked exactly like what you would think if you went to a Hollywood movie set and they were making a horror movie and they're like, okay, here's our, corpses and they're all made out of latex and whatever. None of them looked real. And then you go into the next room and that's the room where the students are practicing. So when class ends, they all hightail it out of there. So you've got all these tables with these bodies on them and they're in various different stages of being dissected and worked on. So they're their whole chest cavity is peeled open and there's no lungs, they take those out and do something with them. And it was I just remember thinking that this looks just like a Hollywood movie set. This all looks fake. It didn't bother me at all, but there was another room they had and I only had to go in there one time and that was different. It was the same thing. Basically. It wasn't they didn't do testing or they didn't do the medical students didn't practice on anything in this room, but it was the whole room and it wasn't very big. It was the size of your average walk-in closet, maybe. And it was all for babies.
Oh, no, really?
I had to go in there one time and there was probably about, I don't know, maybe 4 dead babies in there on lined up on a shelf.
Damn.
And that got me. I was I'm out. Okay, do what you got to do. Let's get out and shut the door. We're out of here.
Yeah.
That one the other one didn't bother me, but the baby room was the hard one. And so I found out pretty early on I'd go home at night and maybe I had a fist fight, maybe I had to see a room full of dead babies or whatever, and it was just no, I'm not. I mean, I'd gone to the DH or was it the what do they call it? The Department of DPS, Department of Public Safety.
Again.
I went to the academy, graduated, had everything, got my diploma for the police academy. I arrested people, handcuffed them, threw them in the car, and all thing. And within 3 months, I was like, nope, this is not cool.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't for me either, but I stayed there for a while.
I mean, it pays well, but
and honestly, it was. I mean, it was fun while it lasted. But like you said, I couldn't stay there. I wasn't happy there for being there for a long time.
Well, then it's such a litigious profession. Everything you do, you're like, can I get sued for this? Can I get sued for this? Can I get sued for this? And so you're always questioning every decision. Oh, is that the right decision? Can I get sued for this?
Yeah.
That
might be one of the reasons why that video you were telling me about where the female cop was chasing the guy. She had her taser out. Maybe she was afraid she was going to be charged with manslaughter or something if she actually killed somebody.
Well, like I was watching these videos, and like every time there's somebody armed with, whether they have a knife or whatever, and they're standing there, and they say, "Drop the knife, drop the knife, drop the," and they say it like 34 times. You know, let me see your hands. 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 Drop the knife. Drop the knife. Drop. And I'm like, you know, at like the second drop your knife, and he's still got it, and he's coming. I'm popping him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these people. I mean, they must be so terrified of lawsuits that like I'd have shot him like 5 minutes ago. And then when they do shoot, they overshoot him. Like the guy's on the ground and they're still pumping lead into him, and they're telling him to drop the knife. And I'm like, the dude's dead, dude. Like,
it's like,
and I think that's because they told us back when I was in the academy that if you have to discharge your weapon, if you just like shoot them once and they drop and you're done, they can use that against you because you must not have felt that threatened because you only shot him once.
Yeah.
They actually told us, like, if you have to shoot, like, unload, because that shows that you were in fear of your life. So much so, I had to shoot him 17 times, you know, and it's just like, so it's stacked against you. I mean, for both sides, like the person's toast. If they pull the gun on you and shoot, you're going to get hit a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then what does that do to the psyche of the one that just emptied a mag on you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's there's no winner, you know. So I got out. I was like, nope.
Yeah.
The first time you go code 3 and you got the lights and siren going, it's kind of a rush. You're like, this is pretty badass. And then you're like, yeah, but like if somebody stepped off the curb and I hit them, then I'm liable, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, you're always second guessing. So you're like, this isn't fun. Like I'm always worried about, no matter how right it feels, like some lawyer could twist it and I'm toast, and they'll take your house and your car and your pension, and you know, you're like, this is not for me. I think the best thing would be to be like a deputy sheriff in some really super remote rural county where all you really deal with is like somebody hits an elk and you got to go out there and scoop it up and push it off the side of the road, you know.
Yeah.
Like most of your shift is basically just driving out in the country and like listening to music.
Yeah.
And the occasional like old person dies in their sleep and you got to show up for that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the only way I'd ever be a cop, is if I was like deputy so-and-so out in the middle of like nowhere, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Your biggest concern was like, don't hit an elk. All the paperwork would be awful, you know. And we'll be down a cruiser while they get this repaired.
Yeah.
That's the only way I would ever. I actually did think about the last time I lived in New Mexico. I lived remote too. This is like in 2015. It's like 2013 to 2016. I did actually start the application process for deputy, and then they were, I think they got to the point where like I was going to have to do the physical. And I don't know if that's when I started watching videos, kind of like, oh, okay, what's this all about? And I started seeing all this stuff and going, no, I'm not doing this. And like they scheduled me to like, you know, go do like the half-mile run or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I just called the sheriff back and says, I'm no longer interested. I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
But I mean, that would have been probably car accidents out in the middle of nowhere. Wouldn't have been too much. But yeah, I thought better of it and bailed before it got too far down the road. Plus, I even had trouble with this in the military. I really hate people telling me what to do.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
It really rubs me the wrong way. Even if, like, you know, he's got a point and like he's got seniority and I understand why he wants me to do this. Okay, but it just grates at me.
Mm-hmm.
I used to bite my tongue so much in the military, going, oh, shit.
Well, I heard some of the things they say are just and things that they have people do in the military is like the most inefficient way of doing things possible.
Yeah.
It's like,
and you know, the person telling you to do it isn't as good at the job as you are.
Yeah.
And what he's telling you, you're like, yeah, that's, you know, that sounds great, like in a book or like in a classroom, but in real life, this is not, you shouldn't do this, but yeah, you need to go do that.
Mm-hmm.
or like in the military, it's a lot of busy work and hurry up and wait kind of crap.
Yeah.
And they're like, I've been here for like an hour and like nothing. Oh, what am I supposed to do? And then they'll like, well, go get that broom and like, and you're like, you're fucking kidding me, right? Like I've been standing for an hour and you have nothing for me to do, so you're gonna have me sweep a hallway. It's like there's nothing I could be doing better with my time, and I would just get really annoyed.
Yeah.
I got lucky in the military though, because I got ranked really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like E5 sergeant in like 3 years.
That's quick. That is quick.
Yeah, I made
E5.
E5 like I blinked and I was like an E5, and I was like, and suddenly you're a supervisor, you've got people under you. Like if there's a work party crew, you supervise them, tell them what to do. But I was like super chill. Like everybody liked working with me because I was just like, this is total bullshit. I get it, but like they want us to do this. So as long as it's done by the time they show up, because I usually worked overnights, as long as we like bust it out real quick, we can like screw off the rest of the night or whatever. So, and I was fair. Everybody liked me. So
that's good.
I saw through the nonsense. Even then, because like the young ones coming out of boot camp, they're still programmed.
Yeah.
And you're like, no. Let me set you straight, brother. All that stuff they told you in boot camp, throw it out the window, okay?
Did you have to take that basic leadership course for E5? The BLC?
Yeah, I think I took a NCO course.
NCO course?
Yeah. But my military career was really weird because I was in the Navy, and so they rotate you seashore.
Mm-hmm.
So I started off on shore, but I went to a Marine Corps air station. So I was stationed with the Marines for 2 years, and I did everything the Marines did. Like if the Marine, and I didn't have to though. I could have used I'm not a Marine, but I was like, the stuff they were making them do, I was like, that sounds kind of cool actually. Like they'd have to, like in the Navy, in boot camp, you have to go through the gas chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And most people think it's like the worst part of boot camp. I didn't. And I was like, it's sort of like eating like really hot peppers. It didn't bother me that much. I thought it was like people were overreacting. They had like snot strings going from their nose all the way to the ground.
Yeah.
They're all hacking. And I walked out of there like, it kind of sucked, but it's not that big a deal. But the Marine Corps has to requalify every year. They have to do it again. So every time the Marines I was with, it's like, yep, you guys, you got to go back to the gas chamber. I'd be like, I'll go. I went 3 times voluntarily. They thought I was nuts. They're like, why are you going? You don't have to. I'm like, gets me out of work. And I've done this like twice already. It's like no big deal. They talk for a while, then they put the pellets in there and get all the gas in there, and then they put more and make it more gassy, and then they make you take your mask off and hold it up in the air and until you can't hold your breath anymore, and then they start asking you questions. And then at some point they open the door and you walk outside. I was like, this is easy. It's no big deal. And then when they would qualify yearly on the rifle range, it's like that's a whole week.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, I don't have to work. I can get on a bus in the morning, go to the armory, check out a M16A2, go to the range, shoot all day, and then come back and clean my rifle and go home.
Yep.
Like, yeah. I'm like, I'm doing it. So I went 7 days on the rifle range. And then it's funny because the Navy, you get a ribbon and a medal for rifle qualifications, but nobody does it because it's not required. But I was with the Marines, so I got a ribbon and a medal, and the Marines don't. They don't get one. And so then later on, the same thing comes up. It's like it's pistol quals. I'm like, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And so another week of shooting pistols, and I got another ribbon and a medal. So when I showed up, I went from there to an aircraft carrier and went to the Persian Gulf. And when I showed up with my ribbons on, everybody's like, well, "What's that?" I'm like, "Oh, that's expert pistol." Well, what's that? Oh, that's expert rifle. They're like, "How the hell did you get those? Nobody on the ship had them." I'm like, I've been with the Marines for the last 2 years. So it was funny because like I had like 6 ribbons when I showed up on the ship, and like people that outranked me had like 3 or 4 ribbons. I already had like 6, and then I made rank, and so people that were kind of dicks to me, I went like 2 ranks above them, and I was like, yeah, You're lucky I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went from the Marines. I dressed like the Marines. I did everything. I went on PT runs with them every day. We've got PT. I'd go with the Marines.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they did, I'd do. And then I went straight to the Persian Gulf on an aircraft carrier. And we had a Marine detachment on there. So I'm like all chilly with all the Marines and all the Navy people, you know, oh, we don't like the jarheads. And I was like, these guys are cool, dude. So I'm hanging out with the Marines, chilling with them. It was weird. I had a really weird, and I lived on an Army base. It was super weird. Yeah, when I worked with the Marines, I lived on an Army base.
That's
and
weird.
They went on an aircraft carrier. So it was like I got everything but the Air Force.
Oh, that's interesting.
But yeah, it did wreck me up physically. That's why I'm on disability now. But
yeah, I bet it did.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I think one of the biggest parts of disability was when I went to the Persian Gulf. They when you go overseas, they inoculate the shit out of you, and they actually have you get in a line, and they have people on each side, and you just take a step. They do like the 2 guns and then the 2 guns.
The air gun things, yeah.
And then when I was going through my disability claim, and I had all these, you know, issues and claims, and they're like, well, you have to prove it's service related. And I go, okay, let me see my vaccine records, because they stuck a whole bunch of shit in me before I went overseas. And they're like, those are sealed. And I said, well, if they're sealed, then how can you prove that that's not the problem? So they gave me 100% disability instead of telling me what they injected me with. Like that was more important to just give them the money. Just don't tell them. Just like, don't. And then I was saying that they found out that people who have been overseas in the military, they won't take your organs for organ donation. And I know it's because of what they inject in you. It's the only reason that they would deny it. So it's crazy. It's an insane world we live in.
Yeah, it is.
But if I hadn't gone through all that, and then I ended up out here, I would have had no income other than just working for. I mean, I actually went to Texas for 2 months and worked just to make money, just to live here. And I would have had to been on like the travel team and gone all over the U.S. doing that job.
Yeah.
And never even been here, but I would have been able to, make my payments, but I wouldn't have been here. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
And so if I hadn't gone through what I went through in the military, I wouldn't have gotten the disability, and I wouldn't have been able to basically. I don't leave this property unless it's mandatory. Like I'm here like 24/7, and I couldn't be happier. Just me and my dogs and the chickens, and the cats.
That's cool.
As soon as I get my fence completed, I'm probably going to get. I want to get a donkey.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why. I know a couple neighbors that get donkeys, and they don't do anything. They just eat grass. Actually, they do something. There's these things out here that are called goat heads.
They eat those?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Donkeys are like the only thing they'll eat goat heads. And if you've ever dealt with goat heads, they suck on every level.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
First time you step on one barefoot, you'll curse goat heads. They'll pop bicycle tires. I mean, they're brutal. And a lot of people will like, and once you get like goat head on your property, like they just go, and they're everywhere. Donkeys will just munch them down. So I'm like, I want a donkey. It could be kind of cool. Just have a free range donkey on the property that just walks around and eats grass and goat heads. But, I just got 5 more chickens. Love my chickens. And, it's a good life. Like I said, the stuff I see and hear about, I don't experience. So it's almost like it's kind of like COVID when I went into the belly of the beast on purpose just to see what it was all about. But if I had just stayed out here and not actually gone into the cities, I would have had no experience with what everybody was talking about.
Yeah.
Which next time is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not going anywhere.
You're just gonna take the word for it, for what you hear.
Yeah, I'll just take their word for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So you know how like they always try and keep everybody fear based.
Oh yeah, that's
Have
big
you heard
thing.
the latest chatter
Well, I know
about?
they talk about measles right a lot now here.
I'm hearing 4th of July.
Oh, like a
That's when the sleeper cells are going to be activated in the next 9/11 type. But it'll be worse than 9/11 because this might actually be real. I don't know, but yeah, they're getting everybody scared about the 4th of July because, and of course it'll be Iran, even though there's probably 50 countries that have quote unquote sleeper cells in the U.S.
Yep.
The 4th of July is when something's going to happen. It'll be Iran justification. Everybody's going to want to kill Iran. So I don't know. I mean, if I was in charge of the evil ones, I'd do it. Seems like a perfect setup. But it seems like every time I'm like, oh, that's a perfect scenario. They could do this on this date or do this or that. They never do it. So
yeah, it's the whole thing.
I'm obviously not designed to be like an evil elite. Because I'd be at the one at the table going, why are we not doing this, dude? They're like sitting ducks. No. The stars aren't aligned up and it's not the right gematria date. I'd be like, hell with that. Let's just take it out. Let's blow it up. So every time I'm like, oh, this is the one. It's perfect. It's perfect. It never happens.
Yeah, it's
It's like 9/11. They didn't. I mean, they told us in like Back to the Future years before, but nobody picked up on it. There was no chatter where everybody's like, September 11th, watch out. So when they tell you like July 4th, it's like you could almost take it to the bank that nothing's going to happen. But who knows? Maybe this time they'll pull the old switcheroo on us. But yeah, I mean, is there anything you wanted to finish with or talk about that you didn't?
No, I think we covered everything. I was just
we did. We
on my
covered
mind.
a lot of ground. What is it? Let me see something here.
On my
doesn't
mind.
this thing usually have a? Oh, it's on this one. It has a ticker. 3 hours and 6 minutes and a half.
Oh, no. That's long time.
3 hours and 6 minutes. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything I think there's much left we didn't cover. So
yeah.
But if anybody else wants to come on here and talk like this gentleman, feel free. Just hit me up at the contingency plan at Proton Mail, and I'll let you talk. Like I probably talked more than he did, but that's because I'm used to doing this. It's weird to have somebody else that can like say stuff. You're like, you're always concerned about like too much dead air.
Yeah.
So
it'd
you're
be cool
always
to have. It'd be cool to have like a panel. It'd be cool.
It'd be cool to have like 4 or 5 people on here.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be fun.
And then just do like topic by topic, just check them off. Like, okay, we're going to talk about this for 10 minutes. And then we're going to go to the next one.
Yep.
The good thing about this world, especially now, is it gives you topics.
Oh yeah, that's more.
Like, there's no shortage of like, what do we talk about? It's like, well, just pick something because they're like doing 10 different psyops at once. But they're all related. I mean, it's all to get to the same
end
point.
Same end is an end goal is always there.
Yeah, it's all the whole Agenda 2030, one world government. And I just think that the only way I've always thought this, the only way they're going to be able to pull off like the one world currency, the one world religion, the one world government, the one world army and all that, is there has to be just like this insane event. And it's like 9/11 impacted the people that lived in New York City. But, a guy in Kansas or Nebraska is probably like, yeah, that sucks. But, I got to go out and plow the field. It's got to impact like everyone. Like it could be like a grid down or I always thought one thing they could do is to take out like an American symbol, like the Statue of Liberty or the Golden Gate Bridge. I don't know if that would get enough people, but a lot of the real, America, those people would all just be screaming for revenge. But I think it's got to be something that impacts all sides. And to me, the grid down, because it's going to take away everybody's cell phone. It's going to take away everybody's internet. It's going to, and then, I mean, just they do it in the winter. A lot of people will freeze to death. Do it in the summer. A lot of people will die of heat. I mean, you won't be able to get gas. The grocery stores will run out of food and they'll have no way to get restocked. I mean, to me, that's the golden ticket if they want to. And then when it all comes back up, they're going to say, well, the Hegelian dialect, problem, reaction, solution. They've already got the solution right here on the shelf. You guys don't want to go through that again, do you? Like 90 million people died. But if we do this, that'll never happen again. And that's, to me, that's the best way to get everybody to go play ball.
Yep.
Because if they blow something up, there'll be, all these, false flag. It was Israel. It wasn't, Iran. You're going to get all that nonsense. But if they do something where every single person is impacted and a lot of people actually do die, it's going to be real easy to convince the herd to go, yeah, we can't.
Oh, yeah. Rally behind patriotism, right?
Yeah. So I think even if they do like activate sleeper cells and they start blowing up shit and maybe there's like a bunch of mass shootings and all that, that's not the event. That's just to spread more fear.
Destabilize, yeah.
Yeah, the real event will be, to me, I can't imagine anything better than the power grid.
Yeah, power grid or...
Because it cuts off all communication, so people are going to... a lot of people, I think if that happened and there was no power and say after like a week and it didn't look like anything was going to change, I think a lot of people would off themselves.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah, there was some done.
And then, of course, you've got the hordes and the people that are going to go looking for any resource they can get, and they don't care what they got to do and who they got to go through to get it. They could have this place. They could cut the population in half in several months, and then magically everything powers back up. Because I don't believe in like the EMP thing. I think it's literally they'll just flip the switch, and they can flip it back at any moment. But they'll be saying like, "Oh, EMP, it was China." Or whatever, and then when they're ready, they go, okay, where we need to be. They'll just everything just powers back on magically, and then they'll have the solution ready.
Yeah, and then I agree. They aren't going to do anything without having the answer already in place.
Yeah, I think anything you see short of grid down is just paper cuts. Even a quote unquote World War III.
Yeah.
Well, would we even see anything here? Maybe a little bit. Maybe there could be some sporadic
probably not.
Scuffles here and there across the country. But it's not, most people are going to go to work the next day and go, oh, yeah, we're fighting Iran over there. The only way to impact everybody is to just flip the switch.
Yeah, that would be... that'd be bad. People would definitely freak out.
What did they say? 90% in the first 1 year of grid down, 90% of the population.
Yeah, 90%. So that's the.
So let's say they do it for 3 months. 3 months, you probably got a good 30%, 40% gone. And I've always said that they do want to depopulate, but the reason they want to depopulate is just about easily managing. It's so much easier to steer 100 million people versus 300 million.
Yeah.
That's another thing I never really got into on any of my videos yet or my live streams is that the world population, I think it's complete nonsense.
Oh, yeah. Where is this? So like 5 billion or something like that? Now?
There's nowhere near 7. Yeah. They're saying it's between 7 and 8 billion worldwide. Not a chance. Not even close. And there's been people that have done studies, like they say India has 1 billion people. Well, they individually took a census of like each of the major cities and then the outlying cities. And then they said, okay, there's a margin of errors. Maybe there's some people that live out in the Tules we don't even know about. And it was like 300 million. It's like less than a third of what the claim is. So there would have to be like 3 times the amount of people in India that they don't even know about.
Yeah.
In order for there to be 1 billion people in India. And I think that's worldwide. Like all the population numbers are exaggerated, and they do that again for fear, because then you say, well, if there's 8 billion people on the planet, then we're going to run out of resources.
Yep. Yeah.
When in actuality, God's provided everything we need.
Yeah.
And there's more resources than we'd ever know what to do with. I think they're hiding a lot of it. But everybody's going to be like, oh, there's so many people. It's climate change, and we're going to run out of food and electricity. Meanwhile, they have these data centers that suck up all the electricity, and they're poisoning the food. But you want to be able to go to McDonald's and eat human flesh. I mean, you can't take that away from us.
I think of the same thing with money too, as far as just so inflated when they're talking about, well, how like we give however many billions and trillions to other countries. Is there even that? I think those figures are. I don't know if they're real or not.
No, they're not real. That's more fear because
money.
Technically, money is only numbers on a keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got a loan for this house, and the all the acreage and everything.
Mm-hmm.
No money transferred hands. I never held a dollar bill.
Yeah,
related. It was all, they just typed it on a keyboard and said, boom, there's your loan.
Yeah,
it's just numbers on a keyboard, and they could make those numbers smaller or bigger, and it wouldn't make any difference. And that's why I've always said the stock market was 100% fabricated nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Because they always tell you, like, if something happens and they go, oh, the stock market took a dive because this happened.
Mm-hmm.
My life didn't change at all. Like, no,
Nope.
like I could still go to the store and buy whatever I need. I could put gas in my car, come back home. Nothing changed. So the stock market is 100% fiction. They just play with numbers that aren't even real. They just say, oh, it went up, oh, it went down. And they use it for fear because, oh, the stock market is going to crash. Oh, no, I've never had a penny in the stock market. I don't care what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And then what they do is when they say, oh, the stock market crashed, then they fabricate all these, like what you would expect if it was real would happen. Like, oh, if the stock market crashes, then like a loaf of bread is going to cost $900. Well, they say the stock market crashes. It didn't. It's just fake. But then all the grocery stores raise their prices to $900 for a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
And so in your mind, you're like, oh, it's real. But it's all just complete. Because they could say the stock market crashes and you just continue to sell your bread at the same price. Nothing's going to happen.
It's kind of the same thing as if oil prices go up and all of a sudden gas prices go up.
Yeah, even inflation. Like things don't have to cost what they cost.
No,
you could buy a house like in 1950 for like $25,000 for a nice, really nice house. They could do that today.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, oh no, inflation now. An average 3-bedroom house is like $500,000, or depending where you're at. There's houses that sell for $1 million, and they're just like they're not even a big house.
Nope, yeah.
Like that's not real.
New York,
if everybody just stopped buying houses, like, you know what, screw you guys, we're not buying another house. Within 2 months, all those prices, that $1 million house would be 150.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that people consent and play along with the game, which is what voting is. Like I said, they don't count votes. It's just part of you opting into a consent-based system. You're like, I'll play the game. Here, let me vote for so-and-so. I'm in. You're just playing. All it is consent to play their beast system. If like, say they had a presidential election, I don't think there's going to be another one. I don't think they're going to have any more presidential elections, but that's just me. Mm-hmm. But let's say in 2028, they do have a presidential election. I guarantee you, if nobody voted, like nobody went to the polls, like not one vote was cast, and you watched Fox News that night, they'd have all the tallies and telling you, oh, Idaho's they're 2 delegates away from, they would have the same pre-programmed script. Somebody would get 72% of the vote and somebody else would get, 28% or whatever. Nothing would change, even though not a single vote was cast, and you'd have a winner and a concession speech. And it would be just like everybody voted. It would be this. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
I think when they show like all the states and like, oh, Rhode Island's kind of swinging red. So-and-so's only got a 2% margin on this. None of that's real.
That's so curious, like professional wrestling. It's all scripted.
And then they give us a president who used to be deeply involved with the WWE.
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
And is really good friends with what's his name? Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
And actually, I think he even bailed him out and gave him some money to keep the WWE going when they were having trouble at one point. They're really tight, and like all the scripted stuff, and it's a mirror. They tell you this stuff, like this is the same as WWE politics. Mm-hmm. They even call it political theater.
Yep.
Like they don't name it like the fog of war or the theater of war. They call it the theater of war. Why do they call it the theater of war? That's not, you're not Battle Zone watching a movie. Well, they call it a theater because what happens in a theater? You see a play,
Mm-hmm.
a scripted play with actors. So, I mean, they tell you it's like we were talking about that karmic law where they have to,
Mm-hmm.
but they've dumbed people down to the point where like they can't. I mean, that's so basic to say political theater or theater of war. I mean, you can't be any more upfront. And people like literally will risk their jobs, their marriage, and stuff arguing about Orange Man bad and Biden was had dementia and was a clone. It's like both are true. Don't you understand? You're being played.
Yeah.
And these quote unquote politicians, all they are grifters. They don't care what happens to anybody. It's all about just making money, and they get like invited to these really nice dinners on our dime. They get to travel in first class and in limousines on our dime. They get heads up on stocks to buy on our dime and get rich.
Yeah.
And notice like they never leave. I think that's part of the sort of like how like the Rolling Stones still have to tour when they're in their 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of the Faustian deal. It's like, yeah, you can have fame and fortune and all you want, but you can never stop.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do this until you drop dead. Unless we decide to, you know, you're going to have an overdose or something before then. But otherwise, if we choose to like let you live, you're going to be 85 wearing Depends and you're going to be on tour. Because like you think about like someone like, let's say Mick Jagger, guy's got more money than, or Paul McCartney, more money than you could spend in 10 lifetimes. Wouldn't anybody else like 30 years ago when he was still, you know, in his 40s or 50s and could do stuff and was active and felt pretty good, wouldn't you just retire and enjoy your riches?
You think so?
Now we're going to wheel you out there when you're 82 and your voice is gone. We have to put backing tracks and like raise the volume on your backup singer's mics to cover the fact that like your voice is shot.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you do that when you could have retired 30 years ago with all the money in the world? Because it's part of the Faustian bargain. You have to go until you drop dead.
Yeah.
You don't get to enjoy it. It's part of the deal. So, but it's like, what is it? It's a little after midnight. We should probably
I get to bed.
Because if somebody does decide to watch this tomorrow at work or something, they're going to be like, "Holy shit, these guys just like, finish listening to this and like, it's like half my workday's done."
Yeah, there you go. Cheap entertainment.
That's not a bad thing, but unless somebody hears what you're listening to and goes, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
What'd that guy just say?
Yeah, we should do
pandas aren't real?
Pandas aren't real. I heard that. the same level as a Shih Tzu.
You know what's funny is like I made that video about waterfalls the other day about how where the hell's the water coming from?
Yeah.
And I flipped on the TV and some guy was talking about it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
He's like, where in the hell is all this water coming from? And I was like, wait, what? I was listening to see if he used like any of the exact phrases I used, and like I think it just dawned on him. It's like there's a frequency every now and again, and like certain people just like tap into it, and like a bunch of people at the same time like go, wait a minute. And I think this guy just was like, what's the deal with waterfalls? I haven't heard as many people asking like what the hell's the deal with clouds, but I wouldn't be surprised if I had something running tomorrow and I hear some guy going, how are clouds floating? I'd be like, yeah, dude, you get it. But the pandas make no sense. Clouds make no sense. Waterfalls don't make any sense. A lot of stuff doesn't when you think about it. I thought I had another one. What was it? I thought I saw something the other day. I was like, wait a minute. You just have to it's sort of like with the biblical earth. It's like a lot of people can't see it unless you have to get yourself in a mindset where you basically throw out everything you've been told and sort of pretend like you were just like you woke up today and like it's your first day on earth. You're like, where the hell am I? What's going on? What is this place? And then you go like, well, I'm going to observe it and see what the hell this place is. So you can't go in with the preconceived brainwashing that you've received since you were born. You have to make it like a blank slate. Like you have to literally go in and go, okay, anything's possible. What's going on here? And really quickly, you'd be like, okay, first thing I notice is I'm not moving. Like this is a very solid, still foundation. Nothing's moving. And why are those things floating up there? That doesn't make sense. And where's that water coming from? Those waterfalls. And pandas are ridiculous. Like this stuff would be like common sense, but you have to get yourself in a mindset of, okay, I don't know anything. Starting from day one, I just woke up. I'm in this place. I'm going to figure out what's going on. And all the conclusions you came to would be the opposite of what you've been told.
Yeah. That's the interesting way to look at it. Or people should probably look at it like that.
But yeah, people can't get themselves in that mindset because they're living in chaos. It's too loud. There's too much noise, like we were talking about early. And of course, there's free porn on your phone, and so-and-so's playing so-and-so tonight on ESPN. Got to watch that. So it's really difficult and I got to call DoorDash and get some poisonous food delivered. So people don't have, like, they never occur to them, like, okay, let's just blank slate this whole thing and see if I can figure it out. And I don't know. I think it's fun. When I see a cloud now and I look at it, I'm like, shouldn't be floating. I mean, I find it fun. I'm like, how is it floating? Because if it weighs heavier than the medium that it's in, because it's like got water particles in it, then you're like, but it is floating. Like I can see it. So then it gets fun because you're like, it shouldn't be, but it is. It's not a trick. Like it's floating. It's right there. And then you start going like, how? Like how's that? What is it? There's something deeper here that I'm missing something, and you can try and figure it out. It's fun. People should like, okay, so the Earth is like stationary and not spinning through space, and there could be more land, and just I think it makes the world a way more fascinating place than to go, oh, you're on a ball, there's nowhere, you can't go anywhere. Everybody, it's all been gone to. An asteroid could hit us at any moment. You're flying all the way. It's like, but when you think of it as like, it's more like a realm. It's more like you're in Lord of the Rings. It's like, okay, now this is fascinating. Like this is fun. Like what is this place? Because what they tell you it is super boring, and it's just fear-based. And it's satanic because it's inverted. Everything's the opposite of what it really is, so they invert it. And you go, okay, a real fun thing to do would just be figure out okay, what is it? It's not what they tell us, so what is it? And that can be like an adventure. I don't know why more people aren't like, oh, the world could be way more fascinating than they tell us it is. But they reject it for like this boring, just spinning. Water sticks to it. There's people that are upside down, but they're not upside down because everybody's always on the top of the ball. You're like, what? It's like, that's just stupid and gay. But if you go, but what could it really be? Then it gets like, okay, this place is like fascinating. And then once you start kind of getting an idea of what it might be, then you understand why they're trying to destroy everything. Then you start going, well, that's why they're chemtrailing it. I don't think they're chemtrailing basically to like poison people. They could do that easier and quicker. They've been chemtrailing since the 90s. So it's not to poison people because, maybe it's a byproduct. They're like, yeah, that's cool. It's poison them too. But it's not like, you go outside, breathe the air, and you drop dead. This is like a long game. So it's like, what are they really spraying up there and why? And then you start going, well, what's really up there? They don't tell us. We can't go up there. But what they're telling us is up there isn't true. So what's really up there? And then why would they spray to hide it? And then it gets super fascinating. That's when you get into all the Nibiru and all these other planetary bodies and what's going on up there. It makes the world way more exciting. It's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. There's a lot to think about. Sure.
Yeah, because I would say the most imaginative people in the world are children. because they're constantly, mesmerized, amazed, and questioning everything. And people are always like, "Oh, kids are so annoying." They're always saying, "Why?" It's like, that's what you should be asking. If we were more childlike, I think we'd get a lot further, a lot faster. But everybody's like, "Nope, science has been done. I'm gonna go watch some porn."
Yeah, there you go.
But a kid is just like, "Why does that happen? What's that? How's that work? That doesn't make sense. Santa can't fit down a chimney. He's a big fat guy." Like, you just put yourself like in the mind of a child who's inquisitive. The world suddenly becomes really amazing and fascinating. But I think they've dumbed people down to the point where they don't have that quest for knowledge. Like, they have a quest for scientific consensus, but they don't have a quest to find the truth, like we were talking about earlier. A lot of people don't want the truth because they're like, "What? I don't live on a ball spinning and flying. I don't know." It's, to them, it sounds horrifying not to be flying through a endless void where things are flying around that could impact you and kill you at any moment, and kill all the dinosaurs, so it could kill you too.
Yeah.
They prefer that. It's like, you guys are like all insane. But anyway, I'll let you go.
Okay.
I'm starting to ramble.
That's all right.
I'm probably dehydrated, starting to lose my mind.
Okay.
I'm going to go check on my dogs. I don't hear anything, but I always check on them, just make sure.
All right.
There's a lot of them, so I got to do checks on them.
Cool. Well, it was good talking. It was good.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I can't believe you watched those videos I used to make in my car.
Yeah, it was very
weird. Like, I don't even remember how I did. I just remembered I had some weird like Google tablet that was a piece of crap, and I couldn't figure out how to make it work, and I had to do workarounds, and then the quality was awful, and I hated it. And I was like sitting in a car, like in my parents' driveway.
Oh yeah,
because I had moved back from New Mexico, and I was staying at their house until I figured out where I wanted to go. So I didn't want to bother them with like hearing their son like saying all this weird shit. So it's like, I'm just gonna go sit outside. It's dark. It'll be nice. And they were like, I remember there were like blue neon lights on the radio or something.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, I had these.
Cool.
I still have them actually. They're in my Jeep, and I have one like above the steering wheel on the plastic, that covers the speedometer, and then I have one that's like below where the radio goes, and they just stick to it, and they're like these LED strips, and you just plug a cigarette lighter in, and they light up. Like cobalt blue, and they still work. I bought those like in 2014, 2015, and those same lights that are on those videos, I can go plug them in right now, and they light up, and they're really cool when you're driving at night, but like I always forget they're there. I never plug them in. I should. That'd be kind of cool. Because it gets like super dark out here. Like there's no light pollution. It's like just nothing but pitch black and stars. So it'd be kind of cool, but I always forget that they're there. But yeah, I don't even think you could go back. I don't think those videos are still. Maybe. I don't know. I tried to go back one time to see like my first video, and it stopped at like the one where I think I did a video on like prepper stuff you can buy at the Dollar Tree.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And that it didn't say there were any more videos. Like that's where it was like I couldn't go further back. I was like, well, that's weird because I know
the Dollar Tree.
I know.
I actually remember that.
I did
buying
that
canned goods and stuff at the Dollar Tree.
I did that. I was living in Portland. That was the Portland Dollar Tree.
Yeah.
I think I went to. But yeah, weird. That's why I don't make like prepper videos anymore, because it's like what topic?
That's, I mean, everybody does. There's so many prepper channels around now.
There really weren't when I started.
No, there were a lot less for sure.
And then like when they all started showing up, I noticed that all of them were like selling stuff. Like they have 3 months food supply and this generator and this, it was like they were all shilling. And I was like, well, this is not fun anymore, because these people are, and they'd get huge audiences. They had like 150,000 subscribers. I'm like, all this guy, it's like a production. It's like a studio. Like, I mean, it's like, I know their equipment is like top quality. They've got a sponsor, somebody that's paying them to do. And then I was like, I don't see anybody sitting in a dark car with blue lights on and with a crappy Google pad, you know. And it was kind of disheartening. It's like, well, this isn't real anymore. It's kind of been tainted. But like, and then I was like, well, I could do new ones. And I'm like, what topic? It's like, did that. I mean, who else is talking about using bolt cutters? I don't know. It's just, that's kind of how I do everything. Is I mentally put myself in that situation instead of just talking about like, well, what you should do. It's like, well, no. Let's pretend like this happened right now, and you have to bug out. You got to go now. What would it really be like? What would you like? What would you run into? Well, you're going to run into barbed wire fences, even if you live in the city. If you take off, when you drive, once you get out of cities and you're driving, all the sides of the road, all those fields and stuff, all of them have a barbed wire fence. Like you can almost not drive anywhere and not see a barbed wire fence on both sides of the road because everybody owns the property and they want to mark their, makes sense. But I'm like, but what if you're on foot and it's dark and there's shit going down and you're like, and you all of a sudden you're standing face to face and there's a barbed wire fence and you got a backpack and a gun and some water and maybe you got a 3-year-old with you or something. It's like, you're not probably going to do well if you have to climb those fences all the time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but bolt cutters don't weigh anything and you can get pretty small ones that you can just hang off your backpack and you just cut the fence and walk right through it. And so, I don't know. I thought of like weird stuff like that, but even that stuff, I eventually ran out of like, I mean, because a lot of survival in a situation like that, it's like instinct and just like being able to have a situation and quickly like, okay, how do I overcome this? A lot of people don't have that. Like they have the, people always say fight or flight, but I've always said fight, flight, or freeze. There's a lot of people that are in the freeze category where shit goes down. They're just going to lock up.
They're not going to know what to do.
They're not going to run. They're not going to put up a fight. They're just going to stand there frozen. And like, you could make all the videos you want and they could watch them religiously. But if that's how they're wired, when shit went down, they would freeze. Yeah. So it's like, well, I mean, I could make these videos, but like, I think a lot of people are going to figure this stuff out on the fly. And a lot of people are just going to lock up. So. Yep. I mean, I think I pretty much got this place wired the way I need it, but there's still scenarios I run through my head. Like, well, what if they had like, an APC, or what if it was like a Bradley, or what if there were 30 people on foot, but they came from different directions or directions I wouldn't expect them to come from. What would I do in that case? What would be the best cover option? How could I, do this, that, and the other thing? And like, it's constant. Like every day I'm like, okay, well, what about this scenario? What would I do? I think a lot of people are just waiting for it to happen and they're just going to like react. Whereas I'm like, okay, I've already got all these plans in my head. Maybe none of them will work. I might be taken out immediately, but I think about it all the time, but I really can't come up with any more really video ideas as far as, because another part of this, because like most people that would watch that may live in cities. I don't know what living in a city is like nowadays. I don't know what they'd be up against. I knew what they'd be up against 8 years ago, but today, I don't know what they'd be up against. Things have changed. So it's like, why would a guy living out in the middle of nowhere tell somebody in the city like how to react and respond? It's like, I don't know what you got to deal with. Good luck. That's all I can say. Godspeed. Yeah. Maybe get out of there and don't put yourself in that situation. But I don't know. Everybody's on their own path. But all right, I'm gonna let you go.
All right, sounds good.
What are we at here? 3 hours and 38 minutes. Oh, perfect time to stop.
Yeah.
It's like
all right. Yeah, it was good talking to you.
But, all right, you too, brother.
Yeah.
And anybody else interested, hit me up. And like I said, we get a panel, get a few people on here.
Yeah,
that'd be great. Be good. The more people, the more topics we can come up with. So
yeah,
everybody,
I think that'd be
take care and God bless. Thanks again for
God bless you too. Yeah. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.